It's 6:30 on August the 17th. And I will do roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Villalobos. Councilmember McGovern.
Here.
Councilmember Styler. I don't see him. Councilmember McLeod.
Here.
Councilmember Clinton.
Here.
And I am Mayor Glaze. If you'd rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then to the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to these Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
And then please remain standing. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, Lord God, we just thank you, Heavenly Father. We thank you for this beautiful little city by the San Marcos River. And Lord God, we just ask that you be with us tonight and just to help us to discern and how to govern wisely. And we just thank you for the gift of salvation. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay.
You want this seat?
So it looks like I only have one public comment. Mary Beth Harper.
Council members, y'all have a big packet there on your table. One of the council members requested this information, so Ashley, the library director, ran copies from it.
I did.
Okay. It has the budget, the annual report, the old contract, new contract, anyway, all that stuff. Okay. This weekend, August 18th and 19th is San Marcos River Appreciation event. Next weekend, August 25th, is Float the River. This is at Texas State TIRZ, and this will be a donation to the library if you do that. September the 9th is Bicycle Rodeo from 10 to 12. Is that the right time? Sonia, the Bicycle Rodeo.
We're going to talk about the date.
Then January 29th and 30th is September 29th and 30th is
Nick, going on.
and extra items that the library has tentative schedule. September the 16th, this is the second annual health and wellness fairs from 9 to 1 via the Crook Building. There's free eye exams, cardiac tests, blood pressure check. There's all kinds of medical and medical things. This is funded by the St. David's Foundation. On Saturday, October 14th, from 11 to 1, during the daytime, there's a solar eclipse party in the library. When we get to go outside and see the solar eclipse. Saturday, October 21st is the Fall Family Festival from 10 to 12. There's a bouncy house, train rides, games, and so on out across the street in the courtyard. And also the Friends of the Library is having a fundraising in the Crook Building. They're having a silent auction and some other things. And on that same day, the San Marcos River Foundation also has a fundraiser. So get your money ready to spend both places. And that's October 21st. Okay, on Saturday, November the 11th, this is the Veterans Day project. The Fiji fraternity at Texas State University is going to come to Martindale to help veterans or their widows for any kind of outdoor cleanup. If you know of any veteran or a widow of a veteran, please let us know. Just contact the library. And the guys are going, the fraternity guys are going to take over. Friday, December the 1st is the annual tree lighting, and the library will have letters to Santa. We'll show a movie inside the library and some other things. Okay, so this is also some data that I looked up. This is from the Texas State Library Archives Commission, TSLAC. There's over 1,100 public libraries in Texas. Okay, public means they're not part of the school district or university. They're not special use libraries like a law library in Austin or a medical library. These are public libraries. Okay, most of them, these are city libraries. For example, like San Marcos, Austin, so on. Some are county libraries. Harris County, City of Houston has a library as well as Harris County outlying place. Okay, Galveston County has a library. Okay, or library districts. Most of the library districts are out in West Texas. Okay, only 91 of these libraries are nonprofits, for example, Martindale. And 2/3 of those receive city funding for part of their budget. Okay, there are 47 libraries that serve a population of under 5,000. Okay, 80% of these receive city funding. And now, at a citywide election forum back in 2021, there were 2 council places and the mayor were up for election. And of those, Councilmember Clinton and Mayor Glazer still on the council. And all candidates at that forum were asked, each one were asked, do you support the Martindale Library? Okay, Mayor Glaze and Mr. Clinton said yes. My job.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak, have a public comment? Okay, then we are going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Bill Calderon has some words to speak to us. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Before I start, did the email get served?
Yes.
So I'm not sure if everybody had an opportunity to look at it, but if you did, you know why I'm here. It was a surprise to me, and I'm sure it probably was to you that the partners had requested that we push the pause button on the TIRZ.
Can I have you speak just a little louder?
Yes.
Some people are having a hard time.
Forgive me. Yeah, it was parched from the road. Yesterday afternoon, about 3:30, I received an email from Matt Williams, one of the 2 partners in GCI, advising that based on a series of meetings that had been had over the course of a couple of days prior, they've been in Austin since Monday. I think they left yesterday evening. That information that they had culled from discussions that they were having on the first phase of the project up outside of Hewlin, and specifically discussions about the property acquisition there, had led them to believe it was ultimately in the best interest of GCI and their financial partners that we come to Martindale and ask for a little bit of time in order for them to ferret through a couple of additional questions that had arisen based on the discussions that they were having. And they sent me that message yesterday afternoon at 3:30. I was not able to actually have a contact with one of the partners until 9:30 last night. And we had about half an hour's worth of conversation so that I could be brought up to speed. And then another short conversation this morning, at which point I requested the email that you have in front of you or in your files generated so that you could receive the explanation from GCI relative to what their deal is. But the short and the sweet is this. In the course of going through this overall larger project development, there have been 4 different groups over the course of the last 3 years that have come to the table saying, we want to finance your project for you. And in each iteration, there were variations on the theme about how that might play. In the last 90 days, there has been probably the best and most financially viable proposal delivered to GCI from a guy named Emmett Smith. I'm sure you recognize the name, the old football player who has been in the business of basically collecting money from sports guys, players, and others, and investing those dollars in capital projects to make money for the players so that they have retirement funds effectively instead of squandering the money while they are earning these millions of dollars. And he's been doing very, very well for the last 10 years. He heard about this from one of his fellow investors and came and contacted GCI in Dallas, and then came down to visit with the Walton Group multiple times. And this week, in the course of having their discussions with Walton, about the acquisition of that property. They inquired about whether GCI would be willing to allow their participation as a financial player in the acquisition of the property here. There had been other arrangements already made for the dollars that would be borrowed to acquire the Turner Crest property. But one of the advantages that became very apparent to them in the course of talking to Emmett and his partners is that their source of capital that would be made available to GCI in part comes from a consortia of Indian tribes whose capital and access to capital comes at a significantly lower cost. And they were willing to make that capital available to GCI to acquire the property, the Turner Crest property. But there were things that needed to be ferreted through, not the least of which is ultimately what the final price would be on that property. I'm not sure if you're aware, but as a result of not only GCI's entry into the market here with this proposal to do $1 billion plus worth of solar farm in three different phases, that coupled with what transpired in the discussions that revolved around the Micron opportunity before they blew out of here, I think it was in the December or so timeframe, basically served to raise the market for per acre costs for acquisition of property. Now that Micron is gone and the market has also forced some adjustments, what we're seeing is an actual lowering of the per acre cost. And it's played out in a very positive way for GCI with respect to the Walton property, in that there is going to be, at final closing, a reduction in all likelihood of somewhere between 18 and 20% per acre cost. When you're talking about 150 to $200 million per phase, you're talking major money if you're reducing it by 20%. And because of that, and because of the new player that we have at the table with dollars wanting to come in and invest on this property acquisition, they need time to have discussions with the owners and amongst themselves about how best to restructure what was going to happen with the acquisition of this property. And unfortunately, all of this just unfolded a couple of days ago. I knew yesterday, you all knew today. And so I'm respectfully here asking that you not do the hearing, that you give us the time that we need and allow us to come back in another month or so and tell you where it's at and tell you what it looks like, and then lay out how we think it best should unfold. I will say without reservation that the partners are fully committed to doing a good partnership with Martindale. I think they want to achieve that still. But when we're talking, you know, tens of millions of dollars in differential, they've got to ferret through this in order to be able to make the most financially viable decision for themselves. And lastly, I'll just to add to the complexity, one of the things that is driving this difficult decision to come and say, please give us a little more time, is the fact that, you know, last fall, actually it was about this time last year when state leaders said, we're going to put a kibosh on the 313 program, which was touted by all of the state leadership as an obscene corporate giveaway by the state of Texas and by school districts across the country. They said, we're going to shut it down, but before we do, we're going to open it up to a few people. 450 people applied, right? Only 78 of those actually got processed. And everybody else basically said, sorry, Charlie, we just couldn't get to you before the deadline. Well, ours was one of those applications. But to make things even more bizarre, when the legislature came into session this past January, within 10 days, there was a bill essentially within intergovernmental relations in the Senate, and I think it was House Appropriations on the House side, that basically said, we're going to revive this horrible program. And And they did, and there was, Senate Bill 5 is ultimately what came out of the legislature, essentially recreating this capacity for almost total elimination of school district taxes. Well, everybody who pays taxes knows the school district is the biggest part of your tax bill. And in the case of these solar projects, each phase basically is looking at about a $3 million annual hit. When the bill was reauthorized, unfortunately, all the renewables, wind, thermal, and solar were eliminated from the program. And so regardless of where a solar project might happen in Texas going forward, we're going to have school district taxes to deal with, which in the grand scheme of things, in light of what's unfolded, makes making sure that we can maximize every cent that goes into these things all that much more important, because that burden is not going to go away. And largely, that's one of the reasons why they said we really need to do this and revisit how best we can structure our deal to save as much money as possible. Because if we do these projects, we're going to have that burden regardless. And it's a financial viability thing. So to that end, respectfully, I'm asking you to pause. Just one last thought. I want to express my gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time that you've taken to work with us, to listen to us, to hear our plea for assistance, and to be willing to engage with us to try to make it work. It means a lot to us, and we're very, very grateful. I'm personally very grateful.
Are you willing to take some questions if they have questions?
Sure, I will tell you that because it's a financial negotiation, there's
There's not
probably a
much
lot
you
I
can
can
say.
share, but I'll do my best.
Does anybody have any questions?
Sure, I got one for you. As you were saying, it could have been, it can be a good opportunity for you guys since the property values have dropped substantially in the area. So it could be a viable, could help your project because of the cost.
Substantial. Yes.
18-20% is substantial.
Yes, yes. Yeah, we were looking at a cost between 160 and 190 million dollars just for the property alone. It's worth taking the time to look at the dollars of that.
So Bill, is that also then going to affect your estimates based on the tax revenue? The appraisal district's going to adjust the.
In all likelihood, yes, but I want, in order for me to do the best I can do in terms of revisiting the assumptions, because it's an assumption-laden practice. I don't want to do that before having an opportunity to go back and visit with Ms. Wasimski and her staff about how they see what's going on with the market, and then use their best counsel to revisit whether there's radical adjustments to the numbers or not.
So the estimates you gave us before was based upon your purchase price?
No, in terms of the benefit to the city.
Yeah. When you gave that table?
No. That estimate was based. It was predicated on two factors. One, the land and how the land would appreciate over time, and on the assets and how the assets would depreciate over time. And it was the combination of those two value data sets that we forecasted the estimated incremental revenues on an annual basis. I mean, essentially, it kind of went like this, and then once they met in the middle, then it continued to go up. And it did that twice, because you start one, and then we have the second phase, it would start again. And so those two lines actually ultimately converged, I want to say, about year 8. And then at that point, the value of primarily the land was what was driving the increase in value. The state statute says for assets associated with a solar project that the appraisal districts must, it's one of those shall deals. They must value the property at 100% when the capital is first invested, and then over the next 10 years, drop it based on whatever their best I guess appraisal methodology would dictate. Their expert, who I spoke with, basically said, he says, I don't know how I'm going to do it because I've never done this before. He says, but I know that at year 10, I have to end at 20% of whatever the initial capital investment was. And he says, and it's got to be kept there. And so he says, and I said, so if I drop it by 10 a year, is that a reasonable assumption? He says, as reasonable as any other. And so that's what I did. And I actually ended up at the 20 slightly before the 10th year.
Fair enough.
So yes, you said that the cost of the land will be less, but then I guess you'll have to estimate the costs of the infrastructure to build will go up because you're waiting, and maybe those bids you got will change, and so that'll cost you more money. Some of the things that I've been asked is for you to say eventually, give us an actual schematic drawing of the solar panel itself. How high off the ground is it? How long do they last? I mean, or because when you say 2,000 acres of solar panels, I just envision a whole sea of glass and panels. And I know the land up there is somewhat level, but it's been cleared and it slopes up. I mean, if you could actually show us the percentages of the phases and how it'll be built out. And I mean, I know it, I mean, you have more time to compile that, but I've asked, people have asked me about erosion and runoff and weed control, and if you're going to use herbicides, and I know I've asked that before, wildlife and fencing, because you have to keep it a secure facility, and how are you going to fence 2,000 acres? And then, you know, we have deer and all of these things. So those are things that I've heard, I would like to hear more about. And so, and the infrastructure costs, were they like 200 million or what, roughly, what was the whole cost?
There's not a lot of infrastructure to the solar farm itself.
Mhm.
You've got, but there's a little. Each phase has will have a battery facility that's basically a building with the battery stuff inside, right? So you'll have foundation, you'll have some power to that in all likelihood. I don't know that you're going to need any utilities, but in all likelihood, some place on the farm you will probably have some running water. But all of that is relatively minor in terms of the grand scheme of things and the total capital cost. As far as the layout of the farm itself, that hasn't actually been done yet by the engineers. All of the focus has been on phase one first, but the pattern that will be utilized for the build out of that will likely be replicated here, because all of these panels basically are elevated. They're on poles. They're 6 feet up from the ground, and they do track the sun as they go. So the glare issue, I think, will probably not be so much of an issue. But all of the other things that have to be resolved relative, what happens to the land underneath, how it's managed, the critters, the fencing, all of that stuff, frankly, still needs to be ferreted out with the engineers and the planners. And by all means, I mean, we will give you as much information as we have available to us. We'll have a lot, frankly, we'll be able to share from phase one that I think will be very applicable here. But there's every intent to do what we can to mitigate the environmental concerns, the river impact, as well as what we do for ground maintenance. I mean, there's even been some discussion about using animals to do that. And so how the panels are ultimately constructed and made animal proof in terms of, you know, wiring and such are part and parcel of the things that have to be figured out. But there is every intent to get as much of that done in a way that is as compatible with all the community concerns as possible. And yes, I mean, happy to share whatever information we have as it becomes available.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
One more statement. I just
Well, I
want,
mean, is this a workshop?
No, this is a public hearing time, but this is the only time you can really, on our agenda per the Open Meetings Act, that you can really ask him questions, and that's why I opened it as a public hearing, even though you had given us the information that we're going to take a pause.
Right.
And so if they had questions about
Sure.
what might have happened, I think that's fine.
So,
yeah, just one clarification. We talked about this before for the rest of the audience.
Yes, sir.
So the Turner Crest property is the largest piece of undeveloped land with a power line anywhere between San Antonio and Austin. Is that correct?
I don't know that.
I think
don't
we
know if that's
discussed that.
true or not. It is, as far as, well, I don't know that it is. The property that we were looking at initially from Walton and the Ulan ETJ was actually a little over 3,000 acres. And it has 3 phase lines going right through it.
Oh, you're saying with power line?
Yeah, power line.
Yeah.
Because that's an advantageous.
Oh,
I've got property. I've been contacted by solar farms.
Yeah,
And
no,
they really strive or contact people with power lines on.
sure. And in our instance, the lines don't actually go through our property, but they are, you can see it from the southern end of the border. It's probably about 3 football fields. And on the north side, it's maybe about the same, because the lines that run this way turn and then head to Bluebonnet. And so they don't go through us, but they're super close. And that's one of the reasons why that property is so advantageous and attractive to us, because the cost to get there is going to be relatively minor. So it's an important variable for sure.
Okay, thanks.
I wanted to ask you a question. So the land acquisition that you were talking about, I know that previous meetings you stated that closing was right around the corner. So now there is no closing.
It's on hold pending the additional discussions. One of the things that that is also beneficial about the new financing group is that they have a capacity to do larger earnest money payments. These things are not structured, these deals are not structured like most commercial acquisitions where you typically have like one major earnest money payment and then a closing. It's not unusual to have multiple earnest payments because the timeline to get all of the things in place it's a fairly long timeline. What was originally contemplated based on discussions with Turner Crest prior to this week was that there would be a 7-figure earnest money payment made to them somewhere in the December timeframe. And that has been basically suggested as something that needs to be revisited, not only because of a restructuring of how those payments would flow to them going forward, assuming a meeting of the minds can be met on the overall cost. And so I don't know exactly how that will play now, but that's part of what this additional time that we're asking for is intended to help us resolve.
I think also since it is open up like a public hearing that we would see if the
I was going to
public has
ask
any
Mr.
questions.
Domini if he had any questions.
I do, and I've talked to Bill, and I won't put you on the spot today. Yeah. We made telephone tag, and it had about an hour-long conversation on the phone, going over this, and I will say that he was very open and with me, and I appreciate that. My only comment is this is the second ready, aim, oops, let's not fire, on this public hearing. The city of Ulan had the same proposal before us for this TIRZ, such a whopping good deal. But they said, no, I don't think it's such a good deal. The county, Judge Hayden has looked at this in depth. They're the logical place to have this because to provide a TIRZ for these guys, because they already have the tax burden built into the land. I mean, they looked at it and said, no, it's not such a good deal.
Actually, that's not true. They have not looked at, we've not even talked to the county about this project.
My point is that the city officials, which are the city administrators, the finance guys, our lawyer, y'all aren't doing your jobs if you don't go talk to them. You don't call up Karen Gallagher and get her side of the discussions with these folks. You don't call up Poppy and meet with them face to face. You won't understand. Maybe there's something special about those two areas that didn't make it such a good deal. Maybe it's not. It doesn't apply to us. I don't know. But you need to do that before we take the third shot at a public hearing. There's a lot of questions out there that need to be answered so that you can explain them to the public and we can know. The scary part about this is that if you do give these guys a TIRZ, it just takes 3 people to go off and indebt the city, indebt the TIRZ portion of the city. And there won't be any bond votes. There won't be, public won't have a chance to shoot this. So to weigh in on this. So I do urge you to please take the time, talk to Hoppy, talk to Karen. And they also had some other people involved. The fact that they talked to the Caldwell County CAD, Shanna, and I think they were talking to Matthew based on his description of who he was talking to. Those folks also need to be able to listen to them and understand how they came up with the estimates that they provided to make sure that there's not something special. There are other solar farms in the state of Texas. And if you look at their equivalent of their county CAD folks, kind of property valuations that he's projected aren't shown on their CAD letters. But there may be something funny going on there. It's pretty complicated. You got to really know what you're doing to go figure it all out. So that may not really be an issue, but Shanna and Matthew will know. So please go make sure you take the time to talk to them before we do this.
Mr. Divini, and then just to add, because I know that you've had the conversation, but as far as like with Uland doing the land study and how they were able to get funding from them to go off and do the land study.
Right.
And we have not done a land study.
Actually, we have. We've got an intern that's done quite a bit.
Well, we have spoken to Uland. We've spoken to other cities.
I'm talking about like
Texas.
our land here in Martindale, like a
Right.
study on the land.
So I believe my understanding was at the end of the public hearing, or not this public hearing, but the next one, next city council meeting, there was going to be an agreement where the city would have seen or would still see about a $10,000 investment to research this project. I believe we spoke about that negotiation at the last council meeting.
Uland, at least according to Karen Gallagher, they got that money before the hill fund, because they didn't ever have a whole public hearing that I know of. She didn't indicate that they were having it. They did go, get their 20 grand to go on.
Right.
You know, let me clarify that. You're talking about the GCI contribution to them?
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't really for land study. Well, there was an agreement, and we can provide you a copy of it so you can see it for yourself. The agreement basically was entered into with the city of Uland, much like that which we discussed entering into with Martindale, to provide a source of revenue to cover costs that the city might incur for legal or anything else that they felt that they might need an independent opinion. And there was a $20,000 check cut and escrow so that they would have a capacity to tap that for that. It wasn't set up specifically to fund a land study.
But if they wanted to, they could use it for a land study.
Yeah, if it was related to the proposed use of the incentives, yeah, I would imagine so. But it hasn't been tapped. I mean, as far as I know, that money's still in the account that they set up. And so really it was done to facilitate the costs they would incur as they engaged with us to put in place whatever incentive package we would put in place. It was largely based on that when the issue was raised about legal costs and the city having to incur those. I said, well, we've done it over here. We can go ahead and do it with Martindale as well.
And then what was the reason for like the difference? Why would they, and I mean, is it like, you know, just with the 25 and the 10,000 here?
Yeah, honestly, I wasn't at the table when that discussion was had. I don't know. I don't know that there was any reason, honestly,
Yeah.
but when I drafted the draft agreement for you all to consider for legal costs, I did it largely based on what I know one would have to do in the review of documents. And, typically when I do these things, I do all of that work. I prepare all of that stuff. So it's not somebody having to recreate stuff from fresh. They're basically getting documents that are then subject to review and edit based on whatever the city's charter.
And our attorney going over it and all that.
Right.
Right.
And so I didn't really think that there was going to be a lot of legal time required because I've done so much of this. It's been tested. Everything that all the templates that I use have already been through the Attorney General's office multiple times on debt reviews and such. So there isn't a lot of tweaking to do. And so I kind of figured 10 should cover it. But we put in there the provision that if you needed more, we would put it in.
Thank you for the
Some-
clarification.
Adrian, did you say you talked to Ms. Gallagher?
Our current city administrator did.
Jared and I did.
Jared did. I was briefed on the conversation.
Yeah, and did she say that she used that 20,000 or a portion of it to create?
Yes, they did use $20,000 to $25,000 for the purposes of, well, for scopes of services outside of their basic municipal level, having that independent opinion.
They hired a third party to.
No.
I believe they use it for legal fees, but that $25,000 is, you could assume, was a gift for the purpose of researching Euland's proposed project.
Did you guys, have you talked to Hoppy, Aiden?
We were scheduled to meet with him. He's had a change schedules a little bit, so we're scheduled to speak with them at the end of the month.
The following Monday.
But we got a couple of months. You're talking a couple of months out anyway.
A month for sure, at
Yeah,
least.
yeah.
And really
This
what I was.
will all be discussed.
Yeah, initially what I was intent on doing was coming back and just laying it out again for you before we set another hearing, if it made sense to do it at that time.
Okay.
Because, there is that, I don't want it to be this way, but there is admittedly that realm of possibility that it may not happen. And I don't know. I mean, these conversations need to be had first. Mayor Davini is right. I think that running traps independently is a good idea. I have labored in all of my discussions with you guys to share with you as accurately as I could why the county did what they did and why the city of Euland did or didn't do what they did. It's more like it didn't than it did. There are no bugaboos about this. What we've laid out for you guys really is the deal. There are differences of opinions about which jurisdiction might lead, but there is absolutely nothing inappropriate about what we've asked you guys to do. And quite the contrary, the only way that we could actually look to benefit Martindale the way we had contemplated was by coming to you and asking you to do it this way, because it's a path of least resistance in terms of having the city fold into the reinvestment zone. Could it be done the other way? It could. It could. But one of the things that Hoppy wouldn't know because he hasn't done it, and I respect the judge tremendously, but I've done a ton of things, and to the extent that we do a request at some point in the future for a borrowing, whether it's a tax exempt bond or a loan facility of some sort, regardless of how that goes, it's got to go through Attorney General review first, and you've got to get those guys to bless it. Otherwise, you can't do it. And then once you come out of that chute and you've got the Attorney General saying you're good to go, then you've got to take that package and go to the bond market. And I will tell you, I did the first local government corporation in the state and TIRZ bond in Midtown, Texas. In Houston, in Midtown, Houston, Texas. Okay. Houston does hundreds of millions of dollars of bonds every year. Paper bonds, ad valorem tax bonds, sales tax bonds, certificates of obligation, you name it. I mean, all kinds of debt. So coming out of Houston with the Houston label on it, you would think would help you. But when we took the first contract tax revenue bond to the market, it was like we had to spend extra time in New York and extra time in Chicago explaining to people why this was okay, why it was secure. And ultimately it sold. And then right after that, they started popping. And now these days, it's no big deal. I mean, you can go to the market and they see a TIRZ LGC thing. And they'll look at the numbers. Obviously, they'll test everything, but those things sell, no problem. The county, on the other hand, if you go through a county created mechanism, up until 2 years ago, it was illegal to sell. This is Attorney General of Texas telling us this. You couldn't get a county bond through their office because there was a constitutional prohibition against using county money for economic development purposes. You could build roads and bridges all day long, that kind of thing, but the Constitution mentioned nothing about this. And so even though the statute had been amended where it says counties can create TIRZs, and that was done about 12 years ago, right after that was done, bam, the first county that used that to do that ran into this problem with not being able to do bonds. And it's the equivalent of creating a mud and not being able to do a tax rate. I mean, why go through the process if you can't do it? And while the problem constitutionally has been fixed, and part of the reason why Hoppy was a little concerned about doing a TIRZ was I told him, I said, Judge, I said, we've got the election results from a statewide election that said the majority of the voters said we're okay with county doing this activity, using pledges of revenue to do a TIRZ bond. I told him, I said, I would feel a lot more comfortable if it were codified in the statute that, that this authority was granted by the voters. And I said the attorneys in the state hadn't gotten to that yet. And he says, so you think we have a problem? I said, I don't know. I don't think so. But I said, I would just be more comfortable with that. And I think that made him a little bit reticent to do it because we had talked about doing that. There were also, I think, at the county level, just generally a higher comfort level of doing tax abatements. They were used to doing that. And in fact, he promised GCI that he would take a tax abatement through their board as an alternative to the TIRZ. So it's not like the county doesn't want to play. They just didn't want to use that tool. I'm sure he'll tell you exactly that when you go see him. And I encourage you to do that. But I will also tell you that, assuming all of this had played out like we wanted to, I fully anticipated going back to the judge and saying, let's have that conversation again. Because it really is more advantageous to them to do it this way than it is to do it there. They benefit more financially. And I can prove that.
Well, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.
We do
Thank you,
appreciate
guys.
it.
Always been very informative.
And, I almost feel the need to apologize for saying, please give us.
We just come back and see us in a couple.
Just one little question,
Sure.
since you name dropped Emmett Smith, Cowboys.
Yes.
Woo.
Yes.
What is the tribe that you were talking about? What's the name of the tribe?
I knew you were going to get technical on me.
If you can't remember, if you could
It's
email
like-
it
it's
to us, please.
Kitatau or something like that.
Huh.
It's a central, somewhat eastern tribe up in the heartland. I'll get you the name.
Okay,
Yeah, and in fact, there's a consortium of tribal governments that are banded together, but those guys are the ones who lead this collaboration with Mr. Smith.
I had one other, just quick, I know we've talked about it and forgive the redundancy, but the couple properties in between what you guys are trying to acquire, city, have you had any other conversations with them, or I know that's probably down the road, but
Are you talking
to
about,
acquire for the annexation?
you're talking about the guys that own the property,
Yes,
um,
in between,
right here?
Between the city
yes,
and.
yeah,
Yes, they called. In fact, as I mentioned, Adrian connected me with them to have a conversation about whether we could cut a deal to acquire an easement so that we could get to your boundary and expedite petition to annex in. There was receptivity when we discussed it several months ago, but I told him, I said, I don't want to walk too far down this path with you guys because we need to make sure that all of this is going to be something that will work with the city too.
sure.
And 2 weeks ago, I got another call from is it Jason. Jason, forgive me, I can't remember his last name. He's the owner of the property. And yes, and he wanted a status, like where are you with the city? I told him where we were. I told him that we had done the workshop. I told him that we were still interested in having a discussion. And then I flipped the question and asked him what happened with the mud. And we were in the process, he was in the process of walking me through his interaction with the city when I had to get off the phone because I had a call that I'd been waiting to comment on. So by the time I got back to him, he was headed to a soccer game with his kid. And we've not really had a conversation since. But because you asked the question, I will tell you that assuming all of this plays out and we rock and roll and get the special purpose district in place, there might be options that you guys could consider to connect them to what it is that we're doing. And if you were to decide to do that by way of an annexation, I wouldn't fear that because that would put the city in the driver's seat of deciding not only what they would, how you could collaborate with them, but how they could use that. It puts you in a position of being able to extract, you probably wouldn't like me saying this, but extract concessions about what it is that they would propose to do if they want to take advantage of the tool. Because, we're here asking you to give us the TIRZ, but you're not giving us the TIRZ, you're making it available to us. It's your tool, it's not our tool. And the city gets to decide how it gets used.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, I didn't want to take it too far because it's still kind of a premature conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. See you in a couple months.
Thank you for the non-hearing.
Okay, so
Actually, I guess since you opened it up,
now we'll
you
close
probably
it.
need a motion to close.
Yes,
Is there a
7:18.
consideration for anyone else who,
Was there anybody else who wanted to ask a question? No? Okay, so we'll close it at 7:18.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep in touch.
Okay, I had a couple of things to say. So I wanted to say thank you to Laura and her mother. We've been trying to spruce up City Hall, and Laura is really good with a drill. She's hung these things up out here, and her mother has hemmed the curtains, and they spent a lot of time last week putting film on the windows. And I think it helps a lot
Oh, yeah.
with the sunshine and stuff. So we put wheels on these tables so that when we need to do other things like this weekend for the river appreciation, we can move the tables around as needed. And we're just trying to make it so that we can clean the room better also. So thank you very much to you and your mom. And River Appreciation is tomorrow and the next day. Anything you want to say?
We have Jessica Mejia here in the audience. She's going to be our MC, and she is our beloved Indigenous mermaid here in Hayes County, but she also does a lot of work here in Caldwell County as far as with the community. So we're really happy that she's going to be our MC. Everything is still, planned. Everything is coming in that we need to do. We have our nonprofits. The art exhibit is coming along. My husband took off tomorrow to help. The yard is getting ready, so it should be really nice. Tomorrow it'll open up at 5 o'clock, and we will have a group from Conroe, and they're going to come and they are going to open up the festivities before the band starts. You're encouraged to bring flowers or fruit or something from the river, or to take part in this ofrenda for the river. And then Saturday, we will have the Matachines, the Central Texas Matachines, and they come from everywhere around Central Texas to be with us. We'll have the full market. We will have, like I said, the art exhibit going on and all of our nonprofits. We will have our Communities Unlimited. They will be doing surveys as well, and there'll be a lot of good groups out here. So we're excited. We'll have some life jackets while supplies last. And Jessica, would you like to say anything?
Just right quick. Sonia didn't know I was going to show up, but anytime I'm invited to speak at a public place, English or Spanish, I want to pray over the property and get to know the ambiance and the people. I am very much a children's character at a library. The libraries that have been inviting me all over Texas, but I do literacy, mental health, and I help low-income families. So I'm more than the sexualized, beautiful mermaids that we see. I am a social service worker first and foremost, and even before that, an Air Force mom. My son's a pilot in the United States Air Force. Y'all will hear more about that during the time that we're MC, that I'm able to MC. But I wanted to thank y'all. I wanted to come and get to see faces and names and not just Google y'all, so I didn't do that. I was like, I just like to see who I'm going to be monitoring, and it will be in English and Spanish. And I'm just very, very blessed that y'all would give Sirena the opportunity to love on y'all, love on our community, and focus on water, because I think that it's fun to have our parades and the mermaid and this and that, but it's more than that for me. And I want to make sure y'all know that I'm concerned about the growth of not just San Marcos and Martindale and the counties, but like the safety of our water. And that's my heart. So I hope that y'all know that.
Thank you.
And then I am very grateful to the City of Martindale. And last year it was because of the City of Martindale. This year it's because of the City of Martindale. And it just puts us on the map for showing how we're a community that definitely cares and respects our river. So thank you, Mayor and council members. And this is your event. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have another meeting, but I just wanted to see faces because I.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank
Pray,
you.
pray for rain.
Yes.
We'll see you.
I will be
We'll see you
translating
tomorrow.
for the Sundays that will be here at 5. I'll be translating. Okay. So thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
And then the next thing I wanted to talk about was the Martindale Fire Department yearly fundraiser. That's going to be September 24th. I am going to be putting something in the utility bill tomorrow to announce that. The plates are going to be $15, and it's brisket and then the sides. And Craig and Wendy Foster are donating the schoolhouse for us to have that event in. Last year it was really successful. They raised $13,000, so it was really good. Dorothy's in charge of collecting, I think you are, collecting items for the auction. We're having a live auction and also a silent auction. And so I guess she has a room where she's putting these things,
Yeah.
because we keep giving them to her.
Is it back there?
Our dining room, never use it.
Need some
Yeah,
more
who
stuff?
eats in the dining room?
I need lots, we'll take everything in.
I'll empty out my storage shed.
Yeah, so you got-
I've had really, really great response from the community, and some of them have, said, we just can't do anything. It's our budget, our money, whatever, no problem. We're very thankful that we can, but we've had a lot of stuff's coming in. And I'm excited for the live auction. We're gonna have some big ticket items. So bring your, what the name of that thing is?
Card.
Paddle.
Card. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, and then the third thing I'm going to make an announcement about is the Parks Department has really been floundering for quite some time. And we're down 2 members right now. So we have Corey Rolock, who's not in town a lot of times, and Angela Jimenez and Jeff Latimer. And so we need 2 more people on that advisory board. So if you know anybody, sometimes it just takes somebody to ask somebody, person to
I
person.
have 2 people I've been talking into it. Should I just have them call you?
Yes, or even go online and fill out that volunteer form.
Okay.
When are the meetings for the advisory board?
River Advisory Board?
Park board, sorry.
Park Board hasn't,
Established. They haven't had it.
we're trying to get them rolling, but we're having a hard time getting attendance.
Wasn't there one in
There's not a scheduled, no,
No,
there's not a scheduled meeting yet or regular meeting date.
for several months now. So we need to,
I've got you, don't worry.
okay.
We were talking about river advisory board though, right?
We're
Parks.
talking about park.
We have 5, well, we're gonna after tonight, we'll have 5 people on the river advisory and 5 on the historic. So that with the new ordinance, then every May, the city council will either appoint or reappoint the members to each of these boards or commission. So, okay, we're gonna move on to city administrator. And so Jared, we don't know where Jared is, but we think he might be in Hawaii. And so he's supposed to be on vacation, but Maui's burning up. So that's why I'm a little not sure where he is. He's not communicating with us, so we think he's in Hawaii. And our attorney is not feeling well tonight. So I don't know if he's online listening or,
I don't see him online.
yeah, I think he really felt really bad. I think he had what Mike had maybe or something. So
Yeah, so
Adrian's the guy.
Go, young man. Yeah.
what is
Do it.
city administrator? I wanted to update city council on a few topics that might be of interest. There's been a lot of conversations about grants lately. We have spoken with the folks at the General Land Office, and they have informed the city to invite them to apply for the MOD grant, the Council of Governments Method of Distribution. It is an extension of the MIT grant. The MIT grant is the Northwest River Road project. The same designs or project has to be pursued under the MOD. We're calling it MOD, but so it has to be something with flood mitigation for the most part. There's a brief description on the grant. We'll have formal communications with our city engineer and Langford to see what potential we have on pursuing this grant. The total for the grant will be about $2.4 million. Hopefully we get some drainage improvements around the city. That's our thought right now.
We're meeting with the engineer on Monday to kind of brainstorm.
Could a part of that grant, you said hazard mitigation, could a part of that grant be used to tear down structures that are in the floodway?
Potentially. So we'll be discussing with Langford on things like that. If it has to do with floods, for the most part, it will be something that this grant can pursue and help fund. Now for the Resilient Communities Program, I'm not sure if the members of council are familiar, but the city has been evaluated on its submission. We ranked very well. We should be expecting a contract fairly soon. The purpose of the RCP is to now start a new study for a master plan for the city. It'll be a reevaluation of our flood ordinances, our building codes, zoning regulations, land use plan, and other public service activities that might extend to parks and population and projected growth. So it's a re-update of our 1997 master plan. So it's been about 25 years since we've seen any kind of changes. That's a $300,000 grant. We're just pending that contract. Now for the TDA CDBG grant. Sure thing.
The resilient grant, was that the one that was based on them wanting to know the income levels of the citizens of the city? And so we presented that based on certain criteria?
That's the next grant.
Okay, that's the next grant.
So the
Okay.
TDA Community Development Block Grant has to be a comprehensive wide project. So what we decided and submitted was for repairs of our wastewater system. It's a $500,000 grant. As Councilmember Sam mentioned, Martindale ranked #1. So Martindale scored one of the highest in poverty levels, according to the Texas Department of Agriculture. We were, I believe, #2 or 3 in poverty levels, but they liked our grant submission, so we should be expecting a contract within the end of the year. And again, it's a $500,000 grant that the city has now been going to be issued. At this time, there's no other grant conversation going on, but this is work that we've done over the past few years, and particularly the last few months. So, yeah, if there's any questions on grants, just feel free to ask us at City Hall.
Catherine, can we ask Mark? Is this proper time to ask Mark?
I think he's on.
There's a
the way.
discussion item at the end.
Oh, okay,
That'll come in handy.
all right.
And the sidewalk one, we haven't heard yet, and we probably won't hear until October
Right.
about the sidewalk, right? Or shared use path.
That the accessory uses structured?
I'm sorry?
No.
No.
Another grant with a,
TxDOT. There's a TxDOT grant that's under review right now. Is there any questions on any of these recent grants that council might have?
So the last one is the repair and improvements of the lift station and perhaps, I don't know, cleaning the ponds, or, I mean, it's basically just Band-Aiding what we currently have, or actually replacing a whole lift station?
We're not replacing a whole lift station. There are some repairs. Some of them are improvements, especially our notification system. There is some, when an alarm goes off, for instance, across the lift station, our main lift station, it doesn't do an automatic switch. It just notifies us that there's a problem at the station. Instead, what it's expected to, this kind is going to fund is a automatic switch within its gears so that no backflow goes back out, for instance. But it will still require some attention. It's just installing these precautionary tools on a majority of our lift stations.
I have a question. We moved money last year. We had $220,000 that Jared put into the wastewater plant. Are we gonna pull that money now out?
That's right.
Okay.
So
Have a new discussion about
That's
where
right.
that money is gonna be applied. I know that was could go anywhere.
I believe next year's when the ARPA fund needs to be exhausted. So that conversation should be had fairly soon. If not next year, no, it's 2025 for sure. The reason of the hold was because we had submitted this grant. So there might be $180,000 opening that the city can expect in the near future. But not until we sign something should we truly start considering it. Other questions?
Good job.
Right. So I'll be moving to the next conversation. This is more of a presentation, informational. There's a lot of concerns and questions about accessory structures in the city limits. Feel free to interrupt me and ask any questions. I know this is we're gonna jump a few loopholes here, not loopholes, but train of thoughts. So bear with me. Past few months, there's been a lot of conversations about my neighbor is putting a fence on my yard. So what do I do about it? Or can they put a fence there? Can they put a swimming pool there? What can my neighbor do on their lot? There's a lot of concerns about these quote accessory structures. Chapter 155 talks about what a accessory structure is. An accessory building, accessory uses go hand in hand. It's anything that's incidental or subordinate to a principal structure. So if you have a house and you have fences around it, fence is considered as an accessory. It serves for the purpose of the house. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No?
A fence is not, I don't know, it just seems
Well, a
weird that you're
tool
calling it.
shed or.
Right. Tool shed, a swimming pool.
Oh, well, I thought you meant a
RV.
fence, that you were calling a fence accessories.
It is.
Okay.
An accessory structure, there's a list of definitions. What qualifies as an accessory structure? If you read chapter 155.098, it gives you a list of what qualifies as an accessory structure. And if it's not mentioned on there, the zoning administrator may make a determination of what qualifies as an accessory structure. Obviously, you can't write down every possible accessory structure. So the zoning administrator has that authority upon those special uses. Here's an example of accessory structures. We see the garage. It's there, that 198, 098. Off-street parking, here's your garage. You have your fences, your little walls here. Those are considered accessory structures. Accessory uses, you'll find a swimming pool, the fence, a tool shed, for instance. These are all accessory uses. You can kind of agree with that, right?
You have to pull permits. They got up.
Yes, you do.
Well, I mean, I thought there was one exception, like if the storage shed was less than 10 by 10 feet.
It's safer to go to the city and ask and try to get a permit. And if it's determined that you do not need a permit, we'll let the applicant know. But it's better to start with a permit application to make that determination whether you need a permit or not. So safe to assume yes.
And
Or
sometimes
fences.
there's other rules like setbacks and things.
Right.
And you can't- And the location of where you're putting
In
it.
this instance, let's assume setbacks is not a concern. In applying our ordinances to the situation, this shed may be too close to your neighbor, so it might be a violation of setbacks. But assuming just accessory structures, these do match the qualities of an accessory structures and uses.
But 6 foot or lower fences are not,
Right, but
there's exception to that, say.
let's just assume that this fence is 10 feet tall. Who knows? But for demonstration purposes, we're not going to get too much in the weeds of the qualities of an accessory use.
And it's good to come to the office anyway because of impervious cover.
Right.
We're gonna come in, that's gonna come more and more into play.
Because of driveways and sidewalks.
Yeah.
That's not considered an accessory
If you
structure.
have a small lot and you already have a house and a garage and a pavement or cement driveway, you may not have anywhere that you can put a tool shed.
Right, and that's all determined in the permitting process. Here are other examples. Example number 3 of a solar panel is considered an accessory use on the lot. RV, if for recreational purposes. It's an accessory use on your lot. Now, the term lot is very important in this conversation about accessory uses. We'll get into the conversation of zoning now. Zoning and accessory uses and principal structures go in hand. We recognize that this very nice house is the principal use of this lot, correct? You know, you don't come to this house for the purpose of the fence or the garage. We come to the house for the purpose of the house. It's important to redefine or to reinstate the definition of principal structure. The primary building on the lot, which is by its design defines the use and character of the tract.
Based on the zoning.
Based on zoning. So this is where we start adding zoning to the equation. Every zone has a purpose statement at the beginning. For instance, R1 is the intended use is for single family residencies and customary accessory uses. R1A is intended for single family residencies and 2-family duplex units. Again, R2 is for manufactured homes and so forth. I didn't include industrial or commercial because this is a conversation on residential uses. But is this starting to make a little bit of sense about primary structures and their primary use on the land?
Mixed use gets a little complicated.
Right.
And when you have a mixed use zoning within our city and some of those mixed uses run to the riverbank, say, and so then that might incorporate other definitions of what mixed use is in areas other than, than are bounded by other structures or properties.
So I did highlight the intended use of a MU district is retail, office, service, and residential uses. You cannot use it for your industrial purposes in an MU zone, or the manufacture of glass, for instance.
Or truck stop.
Essentially. But we'll use the glass manufacturing. That is a inappropriate use of the intended purpose of an MU district. That falls outside of the scope of retail, office, service, and residential uses.
Okay, so then, but you have the word service there. So service could be broadly defined as well. I mean, if you have camping or tents or something, that's a service.
That's a service. Restaurant would be a service. Things like that would be considered a service. But if your purpose is to create materials, that's outside of it. As we understand, it's a pretty broad definition. MU is intended that way.
The garage isn't there, like if you're repairing vehicles, perhaps, or
It could be considered a
reassembling
service.
vehicles.
That could be a service.
That's a service too. Okay.
So we'll evaluate an R1 zone. You know, example number 1, this looks like an R1 type house. R1A, duplex, that's the principal structure. R2, here's your manufactured home. You see, plants here and little fence. That's an accessory use. Not so much the plants, but the fence.
Well, I had one quick question about R1, because in our zoning, don't we have it to where you can have a smaller habitation in the back of a larger structure, like an in-law unit or
So a guest home is allowable in R1.
a guest house?
It just cannot have a kitchen.
You cannot have a kitchen.
No. You cannot have a kitchen in a guest house.
That would be considered the casino.
That would be considered a secondary residential dwelling. And per our ordinances, you can only have one residential dwelling per lot.
What defines a kitchen? If you have a cook stove or something?
It does mention something about gas. I believe you have to have a sink, so the proximities to each other. There is in our ordinance or in the building code mentions the qualities of the kitchen. And then that would determine your residential dwelling. So for instance, in this duplex, you could imagine there's a wall here, but there's 2 kitchens in each unit, which would be considered a dwelling. If this manufactured home did not have a kitchen, it would be considered almost a storage shed at this point. It has to have the kitchen so a person can habit the area. Does that make sense?
Cheat shed.
Right. So this one gets a little controversial in the sense, what is zone would this be? A RV-like facility put on the lot and used for recreational purposes. The city would define it as a violation of the zoning ordinances because it is used for recreational purposes, does not meet any of the qualities of a primary structure. And so this is a violation of our ordinances for those reasons. Assuming there's not a house outside of the bounds of the picture, it's just an RV and it's outside of what is a single residential family home, a duplex, manufactured home. It is for recreational purposes only. So it defeats the intended purpose of that zoning. Same goes with the pool that we just saw a bit ago. In theory, it's assuming there's no house in the picture. This does not look like it has a primary structure involved. So the example here would be you buy a house in a subdivision and you build your first house in the subdivision, but everybody around you builds swimming pools. That's a bit of a violation of the zoning ordinance, because you bought into a R1 district, but all you see is accessory structures in your vicinity. And same goes for storage sheds. If you only saw fences and not a house, all those accessory uses are not there to enhance the primary structure.
But I want to ask about R1. You mentioned about the primary use of the R1. I mean, we have some instances where it is R1, there's a house there, but the house, you can't live in the house. So it has to be a habitable structure. I mean, someone could say, yeah, I'm in R1. See, here's my house.
Right.
So it has to be a habitable, a structure that has a certificate of occupancy, maybe.
Yeah, so the certificate of occupancy does define that purpose. It's the whole point of getting a permit throughout the whole residential building permit process. The COA, certificate of occupancy, assures that
Or like to a dilapidated house?
Yes.
Okay, exactly, but there's already a dilapidated house on it, that's what he's asking.
Yeah, because see, in that, there wasn't, I don't think, any distinction between R1. Yes, if there's a house there, but the flood went through it and it's sitting there. So I didn't see any distinction between R1 being a primary structure, habitable or not. That's all.
right. So assume that you have a dilapidated home on your lot and you are trying to use an accessory structure for the main purpose of that lot. Say you build a swimming pool in the back, but you have your dilapidated home in the front, but you only go to this lot because you have a swimming pool to it. The intended use of the lot is no longer that house, it's the intended use for the pool in the back. It defeats the purpose of the intended use of the lot. And so to kind of get those key takeaways, this principal use of the lot for the R1 is this main house, and you do have your garage. But this lot with an RV on it, with a patio and all, is not serving for the purpose of a principal structure. It's not serving towards a duplex. It's not serving towards a manufactured house. It's just used for recreational purposes and falls outside of the scope of the zoning. This whole presentation is being brought up because there's been several questions from for the past few months and maybe even years to make this distinction between accessory structures and appropriate lot uses. And I really do hope it's help answer and facilitate those questions even better. I'm more than happy to take the time and discuss this item in detail. So is there any questions on this matter at this time?
I kind of would like to see, I've looked at it before, the ordinance itself.
Yeah, so they're located, it's 155-098. You'll find it in the packet here. Here it is. Accessory uses must be as follows. Other necessary customary uses determined by the zoning administrator to be appropriate, incidental, and subordinate to the principal use of the lot. This is on accessory uses. And up here,
So when it says determined by our zoning administrator, is Mike is our zoning admin, who's our zoning administrator?
Chair Dunable, our city administrator.
So whoever's gonna be there at the time, it's up to their discretion.
Not
Usually
entirely.
for things that are defined outside of the scope of the list. So in chapter 155.098, it mentions garages, solar panels, pools, fences, walls, gates, anything that if someone comes with a permit application and it's not on that list, the zoning administrator can make that determination.
I know you want to see the ordinance, but I had a,
He just showed it.
There's
I also have a question about a container home. Like if somebody wanted to do a container home here.
Tiny home.
a tiny home.
Well, I mean, sometimes they
like
use
2 or
3
3
containers or 2 containers.
That's true. Right, okay.
I can see it in my head, yeah. What about it?
So what would that be under?
So if it has a kitchen in it, it's considered a dwelling, residential dwelling.
And then, okay, so it would be, that would be okay, container homes.
Under the accessory uses, if it does not have a kitchen in it,
If that was their main, if that was their main dwelling.
doesn't remain dwelling, what kind of zoning?
Where would it be permissible at? Where would a container home be permissible at?
So if it's for the purpose of living in it and assuming it has a kitchen, my best guess would be the manufactured home. Because it does mention the qualities of a R1 dwelling. That best would just be those manufactured houses.
And it's prefab, like if they build the, you know, the outsides of the dwelling and then bring them, is that considered prefab? You know how they do like the frames and stuff at another place, then they bring the frames and then they kind of build up around it.
Oh.
Is that considered? Because
That's still manufactured housing.
that would be manufactured housing, even if it's like built up on site?
Yeah.
And it's all wood?
As we get to the building permit process where you make that determination, but at this time, that's my
This
understanding.
is what we deal with every day.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
is it R1 or is R1, I mean, what, you know, R2 too?
It
We're,
would either fall between R1
Yeah.
or R3.
Yeah, R3,
I mean, actually R2.
R2, R2.
They're different.
And yeah, now they do barn dominiums, the metal.
this
house.
gentleman has a question.
Thank you. Stuff like that, I move houses,
Mhm.
and I do what you just said right now. And I take the houses apart, put them back together, but have to go in front of the planning and zoning committee before that even takes place.
Yes.
Yeah, because you gotta make sure that it's permissible on that lot.
Yeah.
On that lot.
And that's all you're saying, is that that person, if someone wanted to do it, they'd have to come to and say, okay, this is what I'm trying to do.
Right.
And then determination will be made based upon obviously a variety of factors. The knee jerk,
I took them apart and then
the knee jerk would be, it needs to be an R2. The knee jerk, the quick
wall by wall.
Yeah, and then you just build it back up. And then, so same thing for barn dominiums?
Is that like another tiny home or?
I'm sorry, metal homes, metal.
That's like a metal thing and it's finished out this part
Yeah.
of it.
I moved in 40 containers. Try to put them side by side and one on top. People cut and put the doors in.
So now just housing now just doesn't always look like what was
Right,
depicted.
traditional.
And
Yeah.
I mean, like now we're just moving towards people are reusing, they're upcycling, they're doing different things.
And if you build in the county and not in the city, cities have zoning and counties don't.
Gotcha.
Right.
What about the small lot amnesty that we have in several lots that are very small lots? Or what is grandfathered in then? Because certain things were done before some of these rules have come of effect. And so
Austin, the city of Austin is the one who started this whole small amnesty policy conversation. And I know some of our zoning maps do reference to a small amnesty lots. However, our code of ordinances have make no reference to any exceptions for lots that are labeled small amnesty. My own considerations that would be because those lots were adopted from the county and they were so small that any use of those lots would be a violation of the setbacks. And so
Impervious cover.
in today's conversation, if your lot size was miniature for what our current ordinances are, you would need to get a variance to build within or to place a structure within those setbacks.
Sometimes they can go within, but up.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what I was commenting on is in the county, they don't have zoning. In the city, cities have zoning
A
laws.
lot of people buy houses and they want to go in the city. But then we gotta go from the zoning.
A lot of those cases may also be the variance issue where these houses are being placed within the setbacks.
Yeah.
However, a lot of these, usually you have no way around your setback issue because you're confined by the lot size. It's not like you can just buy your neighbor's land freely or take it away. That's where those variances are issued.
You got trees in the way.
Correct.
All that.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta get a permit to cut a trees.
Right.
So city council is the one that decides on the zoning issues. And so in R1, you have to have in this city, you have to have a half-acre lot. And if you can't hook onto city sewer, then you would do a septic tank. And then, of course, you would have to follow all the setbacks and everything.
Gotta be hard for the tank in such a small area.
In the half-acre.
And that's where those variances start being applied.
Yeah.
Then you add the historic district, you add that to it. So there's another
And then impervious lots.
impervious cover.
Impervious cover.
That's why I was asking about planning and zoning. If I'm going to fund them, they take all this into consideration.
Yeah, big variances.
So what about churches? Where did churches fall in all of this?
I believe, if I remember correctly, is they're allowed in all zones. I don't believe they can't be in, you can't exclude a church from a zone. That's what it looks like, but I could always look at that at the use table. Our use table does make references to parsonages and churches.
Because we sort of have things going on in churches and different residential uses, temporary uses, all that stuff. So, and HOAs sometimes exist in neighborhoods and they make rules about, well, you can't have a car in your driveway or you can't have an RV in your driveway. I mean, are we trying to align ourselves with HOA type considerations? Or are we just trying to strengthen up our?
No, this has
rules?
always been here.
Yeah,
These rules have always been here since they were,
It was
I don't know, they were
there
passed
was
by
a-
the city council.
How is it applied? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Now, we can't change the rules. city council has to change them.
Well, there's been problems in the past with, number one, with enforcement, and then people doing certain things, thinking that they could do it on the weekend and no one's gonna see. I mean, that's just the way it's been here.
Well, and that's why
forever.
the code enforcement officer goes around the city and he sees if he sees any violations, then that's where he comes into play. He or she.
Yeah.
I would like to make
Ours
it known
happens to be a he.
that code enforcement and the city's enforcement has now been informed on this presentation and are aware of interpretation of the zoning and land use and accessory structures to face issues that you just mentioned.
What was that?
To face issues or to be better prepared when issues like this about accessory structures arise again, about the inappropriate use of lots within the appropriate zoning.
But it's also to try and rectify the problems that we currently have, not if something else arises, but I guess we'll be better prepared when something arises.
Well, and we have to know the rules ourselves, because if we're asking somebody to do something, they want to know why. So we have to understand what the ordinances are and how to apply them.
Thank you for that presentation.
Is there any other questions that I could help answer at this time?
Just to clarify, so the RVs that are with the houses, they're fine to have as long as they're just there and that's not their dwelling.
Right.
Right.
Structure.
But once an RV is on premise lived in by 180 days, it's now a manufactured home. That's code. That's FEMA code. You know, we got it from the river and read it again. It's in our code. So if someone has an RV that's permanently there for over 180 days, it's the only structure. Technically, it's now a structure.
Mm-hmm.
And so that party would be in violation if they're R1, because now they have a manufactured home on their home site. And that is, and you know, in some cases, there's no other thing. The other issue when you talk about RVs is how many on a lot. The limit is
One.
So anyone that has two technically has a campground, which is what Jared had brought up before in one of the workshops. You know, it's one of those things that kind of just came up and was like, and we know why, because there's some concern about, you know, them not moving and being there for an extended period, in some cases living in them for an extended period of time, and no one knew how to properly enforce it. Here's a way of, you know, spend the time to finally understand it. The council doesn't have to make the code. It's there.
Yeah.
It's just how do we properly, you know, have an officer explain it to the public. So we need to know, because they're gonna call us. You know, if they call you, you want to at least know, well, okay, I know about that. You know, you're not, you know, if someone's gonna call, you know, it's gonna happen.
Because in the oath of office, it says you'll enforce the ordinances. And sometimes you're going, oh, I don't want to do that.
And unfortunately, it's not.
But then the whole other thing would be about the floodway. When does that come into all of this about having our RVs in the floodway?
So as long as highway ready or not been there more than 180 days, you can have an RV in the floodway.
What is considered road legal?
Talks about it being licensed, so you can have an expired registration. I believe it has to have the wheels on place. You can't just have it on brakes or something. It has to be ready to go.
And a quick disconnect of the sewer.
Right.
And we've discussed this multiple times, but the critical ones are the ones that are on the river.
Right.
Left unoccupied if we have a flash flood. I've brought this up multiple times. If it washes downstream, who's gonna be responsible? Pick up the trash.
If you leave an RV in the say an R1 lot that's next to the park or relatively close to the park, just because all of our parks are on the riverfront, and your sole purpose for that lot is because of that RV, it's a violation of the zoning.
We had addressed that with the river committee about potentially writing something to code that said no RVs in the floodway. And just never kind of got enough, you know, momentum to make it work. This, I think, addressed 90% of the problems without having to write a new code, because it's technically already there.
Well, I know between Pecan Park and here, I know of two places where there's an RV frame from 15. It'll never be taken out.
Oh, I see. It's in the river?
It's in the river.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah. That's one of the concerns about these recreational vehicles in the flood plain areas, flood zones, is that if nobody pulls them out in a safe amount of time, those RVs could get washed away into someone else's property and creating a real threat
Or somebody can
environment
die.
or person.
There was a river. Parking, facing to it, both cars and stuff. Which one? Talking about.
Yeah, a lot of these RV parks, a lot of them are grandfathered, so that you couldn't put an RV park in a flood.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you're in the water.
Yeah.
You've been there. You contact them, they're gonna check it, it was a hell of a pain.
If you could get to it.
Surprise.
Probably right now, since the water's so low.
See, right now, the time is so low.
No.
Back when Canyon Lake went down, we had on 18 weeks.
Wow.
Went down, been there for years.
Good.
Okay, so on the next one, destruction of records.
Right.
Adrian's listed a number of boxes that we've identified. We probably won't have the shred truck come until January. And, because we do have more boxes. Mayor Davini had done a lot of work where he labeled the boxes and when they're supposed to be destroyed. And then
Right.
Adrian has had the clerks scanning documents. We're trying to get things digitized. It'll take a long time, but
So if there's anybody who wants to, before these records are destroyed, come evaluate them, review them, I welcome them too. They're set aside, but they'll be destroyed by the end of the year. Voting records, a lot of court records, records from defensive driving, receipts. I wouldn't say anything substantial.
But like, how long, what is the required amount set forth by the statutes that we should keep official documents?
that was a
So
loaded question.
That's why I included these codes. LC 2350-048. I know it might seem a bunch of jargon. However, these are references to TSLAC, the Texas State Library Archives and Commission. They issue a schedule of records of every possible record a city could own, and how long you're supposed to keep it, and it defines the description of those records.
Like
For
agendas,
instance,
you keep 2 years.
right,
Minutes, you keep forever.
right. This recording, for instance, is kept forever. I'll use the UT records, the utility records of 5016. They have a retention schedule of about 2 years. But it hasn't been cleared in the past, so we have records dating back to 2008. But the maximum retention requirement is 2 years. A lot of these other courts, these smaller court records, the longest one I saw was 5 years.
And so then the one that is from the voting records from 5/1/2021,
That's 22 months. I remember that.
that's how long we have to keep them on?
Yeah.
22 months.
The ballots.
We sent Adrian to a class to learn all about this.
And I'm more than happy to share the record schedules with anyone here if there's any interest.
Good job.
The links there.
The links.
Well, I mean, you put the reference number there of how long you should keep them.
Yeah, it might be worth the time to also include a hyperlink to TSLAC website with all the schedules, and I'll make sure to include the year. Usually, what it looks like is the code, the date, the description of the record, and then the year. That's how government should be labeling the records.
Like you're on top of it.
So if there's any questions about it, feel free to come by and see.
Adrian?
I'm glad you went through all those because I know for a time we were trying to find like old land acquisition deeds for FEMA in 1998 when we acquired a bunch of those lands. So hopefully you have come across some of that stuff and have scanned it.
Yeah, some of these records, those deeds, property descriptions are over time being found and recorded on our computers. So you'll be, if on any city account on our network, you'll be able to find those records.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Adrian.
That's it for me.
Okay, we'll move on to city accountant.
Hello, folks. I'll sit down too. That's all right.
How we doing with money?
Well, we've got over $1 million. How's that? A little higher. Scroll up. Okay, you see our bank balances as of the 15th, a couple of days ago. See our general fund had $38,000 in it. That's, believe it or not, that's pretty healthy for this time of year.
Is that from May 15th?
I should have said August, sorry.
Yeah.
Pretty healthy for this time of year. But as you see down in the general fund overflow, 4 lines up from the bottom, we've got $307,000 worth of operating money that's there. If you scroll up a little more, back where we were. We have the top accounts there are basically the ones we operate off of week in and week out. We have $115,000. You see there, that's at First Lockhart Bank. Tex Pool, which is the investment fund for cities all across the state and other organizations, is where we keep our emergency fund. We're at $232,000. I think the plan is for that to build to $250,000. The interest is accruing monthly on that. We can transfer some of the excess funds at the end of the year to that, if we so desire. See that restricted child safety? Y'all talked about life jackets earlier. Those came out of that money. That money's there for child safety purposes. So as y'all come up with other ideas, that money is earmarked for that. Already mentioned the general fund overflow. The hotel tax fund is at $48,000. And so the total PFIA, Public Funds Investment Act, is at $679,000. You see we've got $100 in our long-term capital fund. Next time we have a project we save for, we'll use that account, but we're not right now. So you see we have $1,027,000 cash in the bank as of 2 days ago, and $283,000 is what we now owe for the excess fines. So cash flow is fine. I don't know why that page is there. This is the general fund budget report. So this is through June. So this is 3/4 the way through the year, fiscal year. So you look over at the percent of budget column, and you see we basically brought in over 100% of our planned revenue for the year through 3/4 of the year. So revenues are doing well. You go down to expenses, personnel expenses, you see are at 68. So that number is below the 75 percentage. Then we have other operating expenses that total, you see the 53,654. That's at 62% of budget, so that's good.
62, 65.
Oh,
62. So all that to say, don't scroll on down. Is there a total? Oh, that contractual, I always forget that. That's people like IT and other contracts we have. It's been $141,950, so we've spent the majority of that money. And I think that's, you see some of the line items, like the library's at 100%. So that's kind of working against that percentage, but it's according to the agreement. And believe it or not, we haven't spent all our IT money yet. That's a change from last year. But,
We're going to.
oh, are you?
Well, we
Well,
all need new
You've got 45
computers.
days to do it.
No pressure.
So if you go on down to the bottom, you'll see the bottom line. We've brought in $188,000 more than we've spent so far today. Going down to the next report. These are just kind of scroll through these, Adrian. These are just payments that we made.
Can we stop on that one real quick?
Yeah.
On the Veritas, do we pay them a monthly or is it a per transaction?
It's invoiced per
inquiry?
Per job, yeah.
And do we charge the consumer prior to sending? Thank you.
What does Armando do?
What was that?
Armando?
Minutes?
He mows.
He's one of our
gotcha.
mowers.
And he's been mowing the treatment plant.
Awesome.
And now he has to remove trees between the ponds.
Connection. Scroll back up to the heading. Is that
It's
still?
actually
is that
junior.
Still general
Right.
fund? Okay.
Oh.
He's Armando Junior.
I had a question about Mike Holmes there. And so that was from out of the park budget for him to do that work on the roads in the phase one?
I don't recall what that.
That was for the phase one.
Putting the new road in the park. Okay.
It came out under his original quote was about almost $3,000, but it came out about $500 cheaper.
Okay. St. Clinton on there.
That's all the T-posts that I bought for the signs.
Yeah.
And then who's taking the trash out of the park? Do we pay somebody to?
Yeah.
Under the Blaine?
Blaine
Oh,
Murphy, he's
okay.
probably back up toward the top.
Gotcha.
I'll go for it.
We'll probably have him do it another month until the end of the fiscal year.
This is only through June.
Maybe we didn't pay him in June. I don't know why we wouldn't have.
It's not,
I probably paid him in July 2nd or something,
Okay.
4th or 5th.
So where is the park mobile money, the income from that? Where's
Well,
that?
as of June, there was only like $9 that had come in. There's $4,000 or $5,000 that came in July. And I don't really have a line item for it in our budget, so it's in miscellaneous revenue for now. That's where you'll start seeing it.
But is there a distinction between other revenue that you consider miscellaneous and just the one line item for park mobile?
Yeah, there's really hardly anything else that goes in miscellaneous at this point. We can look at it closer when.
We
it
really,
starts flowing.
we really need that information, to see what kind of income are coming off that.
I would prefer it to be a concise, particular line item instead of just being miscellaneous, because then it could get mixed into
that's
something
probably
else.
a good conversation for next meeting where we're.
For the budget, because, you know, I'm not sure I can add budget line items in the middle of the year. That doesn't mean I can't give you a little report and show you, but I'm not sure I can add line items.
But by the end of September, you could.
Right, for October 1st, if we write it in the budget and because I think we've already had discussion about what the plans are for the revenue.
You can also print out the miscellaneous itemized.
Right.
You could do some quick addition
Yeah.
and subtraction.
I kind of agree with Clinton. I'd like to have it a line item.
Oh, 100%.
That'll be a.
They need to have it, but
And I think that it's already in the budget as the line item next year.
I mean, I think some of the miscellaneous money we might have received would be, say, when Mac's house would give us $100 towards something. I think that was a line item.
A couple of years ago, yeah. And we get little checks for, I guess Tommy or the court, they look up warrants for this service or whatever. They pay us $6 to look up somebody's driving history in our area. It's really pretty minor what goes in there. This is the utility fund through June. You see income of just under $250,000. You see that's 77%, so that's a little higher than planned through June. And then you have the expenses are a little over plan at 79.8%. So you can see that fund is in the deficit about $7,000 in operations. However, there's some transfers in related to what are those tap fees, monies that have come in there. So actually, currently it's positive because of those items that have come in there. And then you should have a report of what checks were written here.
Is that this Cody Blaine?
Gee, so see how there's only one line there? That means the expense was in the prior month, but the check was written in this month.
But it's not Cody Blaine G, is it? I mean, Blaine is different than Cody. Those are two different
Well,
people.
Cody Murphy is the
No,
one
it's
that's.
Blaine Murphy, isn't it?
Blaine.
Let's get it.
Blaine Murphy.
That might be his
does
middle
the
name.
car-
That, oh, okay.
Coincidence.
That might be Cody's middle name.
Okay. I just didn't want the expenditures to get confused between two different people, but maybe that's.
Well, you don't miss anything. Man,
See why I only do this once a month?
tough.
All right, so there's the expenditures there, and special revenue funds should be the next one. And
Blaine, did you by any chance find out what we could use 5128 towards?
go up a little.
Court restricted truancy.
Truancy prevention?
No, I haven't. Is that something you asked me to do?
I think I don't know, I think I asked about it like on the meetings.
Because it really keeps growing.
Uh-huh. And if it's something that we can work in conjunction with truancy prevention, I mean, that might be a good thing.
Yeah. I've got a little cheat sheet on my desk. It might tell us.
Okay.
I have to go look.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. So the special revenue funds, you see we brought in 37,000. We're right on plan, as you see at the percentage over there. We've spent some of it. You see the 15,000, that's for the, what is it, the River Appreciation and the Tammy Fest. We spent some of that money, and then the court restricted tech expenses, their software to communicate with the police officers and the warrant system.
Yes, just to go on record on that, we're actually gonna run a deficit on the hotel this year because no one's paying. But it's been budgeted for 18,000, we only collected 5,500. So some people, there's the number of people like asked for a report from the other day. There's a bunch of people that were paying that have just decided.
I see what you're saying.
See what he's saying? We had budgeted
30%.
Could our code enforcement guy be involved with that?
Well, that's,
That's probably a whole,
That's-
it's on its own.
yeah, that's.
The permitting process.
Can we make an ordinance for us? Man, we got the guy, let's use him.
I mean, there's an ordinance for hotel tax.
I mean, we have somebody, reminding people, like, hey, I would suggest you.
Right, and I don't think there's expenditures there, so that's all for the financial report. Thank you, Jim.
Any more questions?
Hey, where's the judge's report? Where is the judge?
He said he'll be reporting the next meeting.
When's the last time has he been here in person? It's been a while. I'm gonna say it every time.
Yeah.
We have, our accountant shows up, our city manager shows up, our police chief shows up. Why is not the judge showing up? Why? He needs a report.
Great question.
We ask him.
Well,
I think just like the next time, Mike, whenever we have our meeting, we could just ask that if he could come in and then we could just do a closed session for the next.
well, I mean, everybody else comes in. It's not,
That's fair.
I mean,
I think that's.
we're paying this guy.
I think that's a
Man,
round
that's
issue.
just-
Maybe a friendly reminder.
What about 6-month
He's had a
performance
friendly
appraisals?
reminder.
We haven't had
Has he?
any?
Yeah, I think they've called them a couple times now.
I mean, would that fall under the
Well,
guidelines?
this isn't on the agenda, so
Sure.
let's
Okay,
move
sorry,
on.
Mayor.
I'll take your
I'll get all set.
comments
Yeah,
under
Sorry.
advice.
Thanks, Mayor Glaze.
You're welcome. Okay, we're gonna move on to the police report. Sorry.
Hey, Chief, glad you showed up tonight.
Here, working.
I know you have.
So our July report, we didn't write as many tickets as we wanted in July, but we did a lot of other stuff, so I'll explain all that.
I thought you just wanted to see the draft.
We did. So we only wrote 95 tickets in July, 53 citations and 42 warnings,
How many you normally write?
upwards of 100 and something. There's a couple of factors into that, and I'll get to that, but one of the main factors is our car was down when we had no AC, so it's like 100 something degrees.
Sounds like an excuse.
Driving the windows down and.
Find a shade tree.
You pass out when you're done writing tickets.
But so I will get to the main part we did. So out of all that, the revenue we're talking about Park Mobile, our officers spent 45 and a half hours, almost 46 hours in the parks, walking around the parks, making sure people paid and everything else, and educating and saying, hey, these are our new rules. So that's what we did. It took me about 7 hours to figure out that we worked 46 hours there. Because of our-
Money well spent.
So real question, follow up on that. So once we get our tow away signs up, it's gonna be less and less, right? People get used to it. Your officers won't have to spend that much time.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what we do, and that's barring if we pull up and we jump out or we take the time to mark it on our computer, right, that we're out doing the parks check. So 45.7 hours. You pull up down on Bates, we check Park Mobile, you see a license plate's not there, you see there's 15 cars there, 7 cars have paid. So now you gotta go walk all the way down there, find out whose cars they are and say, hey, let's walk back. That's time consuming. It's just time. So time we're not doing something else. We're spending our time walking around the park, 45 hours in the month of July. It's a long time.
What's the average before that, say? I won't hold you to it. I mean,
So in order to do this, you actually got to go back through the computer and pull every
Takes time.
single.
It'll get better.
So anyway, yeah, I'm hoping that the signs have worked out really good. We need some more signage on Bates. And once the tow company gets on board and starts taking care of business, I think when you go down there and announce, hey, I'm fixing a tow, because you can't find, there's, 7 or 8 cars that didn't pay. Hey, I'm fixing a tow, you'll see everybody's run out. They'll just take off running. And you get their car and leave or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess my next question, are you seeing less trash?
We've seen a lot less violations, actually. So not so much trash as we've seen a lot less violations. People are doing their thing. People are throwing their trash away, and a lot less violations down in the park. A lot less glass, a lot less cans, a lot less alcohol, and so forth.
Less noise.
Yeah, less noise, everything. That stuff's going on. So it is working. I think we spent 2 months going down there, and like I said, this is just 1 month of going down and telling everybody. I think we spent 2 months going down and educate people. I think it worked out very well. Yeah, I think it was 45 hours.
well spent.
Chief, Laura has a question.
Yes, ma'am.
It was more an observation, but I wonder how much of the improvements that you're seeing is directly from the education versus how much is directly from having our police be seen down there. Several of the comments that we've done with interviews with people in town that use the parks a lot have said that just simply the presence of any kind of official looking person improves people's behavior, whether it's police or people that wear like a Martindale Parks and Rec shirt or whatever, but just simply knowing that somebody official is walking around, you're gonna be less likely to dump your trash or do whatever. So I just think that was, what you just said was beautiful for kind of giving a whole non-biased view of their right. Like, I think that that's part of it, is that. So maybe that's just, I don't know, put in the back of your head for as you're thinking of other strategies.
Well, I will say this, we didn't go down there heavy handed, we didn't go down there and say, hey, this is the rule, this is, we went out and say, hey, these are our rules, we talked to people, you know.
And people saw you,
Right.
right?
And, you know,
Like they
people saw us
see-
group to group and.
Yeah,
so-
they know that you're walking around and keeping your eyes open.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I think that helps a lot.
Yes, sir.
And on your signs, y'all talking, does it tell you that if you don't pay, we get told?
Not yet, we're working on that, so.
Well, I'm just saying, because that's another reason we're not gonna pay. Because,
Yeah, right now it don't say that you're gonna get towed.
Yeah.
Right now it just says, hey, if you park here, you gotta pay.
yeah, for
That's all.
some markets, we got an interest, and we got a state saying if you don't pay, you will get told.
That's what I'm hoping comes about pretty soon.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, they don't mess around.
No, we don't.
You know, unfortunately, it's become that way. It's really unfortunate.
Some markets like that. I've been there 50 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Long.
I know.
I just wanted to make two comments.
Yes.
So my first one is like, yes, the education is important whenever we factor in the amount of payment, like the paid part that we pay our officers to do the education, you know, and the amount that we've gotten from, you know, the paid parking, it's probably like almost balanced out. So I also think that it's worth it. But I, as a city council member, I use the parks. Like, we go to the parks. We were just there Saturday. Cigarette butts were all on the ground. There was still glass. There was still people barbecuing. And then, like, with the fires, that's really scary. The music was loud, but I mean, but I don't know if anybody else actually goes to the parks and swim. Y'all go to there?
I go in the morning.
Phase one, and see, we went like we went on a Saturday night, and like there was trash overflowing from the trash cans, but Cody or Blaine was heading that way with the gloves to go pick it up. But yeah, we go to our park.
Yeah, I was down there 3 days ago, and I saw you the day before.
Yeah.
With a trash can, or a trash bag. I went down there with a trash bag swam and then picked up pretty much a full trash bag of garbage, you know?
I tell you, I have to commend
Yeah.
Nick and especially Sam. What was happening down at Skulls, which isn't even the park, there was 2 trash cans there that have been there for quite a long time. And I think they were at that farmhouse that now Lanzola owns. But people kept putting trash in there because it's a trash can.
Right.
And so they went down there and they took all that trash and they brought those cans back to City Hall. So I hope that that'll help a little bit with those trash cans.
Thank you very much. Yeah. that
Even
was-
down there, it was like a garden, asada fiesta going on down
Yeah,
there.
there was like 50 dudes.
Yeah,
down
yeah, there were like
It was
50.
crazy.
Pardon me?
I got a comment.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Memorial? Yeah, if you want to.
Your probation department?
I'm sorry?
Your probation?
So
Probation.
back to your first statement, it is improving. Didn't you tell me,
Let's just, moment, let's have one at a time.
talking to you,
Yes.
your experience, you guys' experience, I got to talk to Rick about this. You've done this in New Braunfels. And it takes sometimes upwards of a year to get people to know the rules to.
Right, and you know, and just to say, we don't have really all of our ordinances posted. We have signs up there that say, know this, know that. We have tons of signs, right? Just going down and talking to people, sometimes they don't take the time to sit there and read all that fine print. It's like a contract. You know, no one reads all that stuff, and you go in those parks and no one's gonna sit there and spend, especially if they're driving in, and there's one sign's right there, they're not gonna spend 15 minutes in there trying to read that thing to see, hey, can I bring this in or can I bring that in? I think posting them on our website and so forth and letting people know it is a good thing. But that being said, I think everything's working out good down there. We had a burglary. We had a couple of car burglaries that we're actually working on at Allen Bait. Someone went over and busted the windows out of some cars and broke into them just the other day. So we're working on that. We got a suspect. We have some stuff we're working on.
Chief, I might add on that. There's a hidden benefit to the Park Mobile. Police Officer Kavanaugh. Okay.
Thank you.
No secrets to be shared, please.
So the other thing is,
Now we know.
I want to talk about, I'd like to talk about that memorial down at Skull, right? It's become a nuisance. I will say this, it's become a nuisance that where those kids got killed several years back. I went down there the other day. I personally cleaned up about 60 wine liquor bottles, all piled up around it. There's marijuana joints all down there, blunts, you name it. So people have been going down there now and paying their homage or however they want to, whatever you would call it, in a bad way, not in a good way. So I think we need to address that, and probably the people that are coming there, it need to be addressed now. It's been a long time, and going there and smoking marijuana, and doing drugs, and drinking alcohol, and pouring it in the ground, and all that crap. I think it needs to come to an end, personally. So that's what I've been doing. I went out and personally cleaned it all up, big giant trash bag of stuff. I took pictures of the marijuana and everything else that was down there. So that's our property now. So I think we need to take care of it.
Skulls has always been a problem. Always.
I'm gonna tell you what, even though if the memorials are there or not there, they'll continue to do it. And
That's what I'm saying. We're going to.
so then it would be, it's been like, you know, how long, ever long it's happened, and it's been going on for that long, and nothing happened even then during that time.
Yes, ma'am.
So did you talk to the families about removing the memorials?
I didn't say nothing about removing them. I'm just talking about removing the stuff that was there, the trash.
Oh, so the
debris.
memorials will stay there.
Well, right now, until we look at our code and see if it's in compliance with our code, I think they have grave sites. You know, I think there comes a time that we need to remove them. If it happened right here in the middle of this field, we're not going to leave a memorial there for this length of time.
Yeah.
Is my thought.
I just hope that whenever it is, and I'm sure that
Yes.
family will be treated with dignity.
Yes, ma'am.
And, you know, like I said, if it's been going on for 2 years or however long that's been going on there, that's a long time. So, yeah, they're.
Yes. No, I totally understand that. And I understand the purpose of it when it was there and when it came about. I totally understand that. And I'm for the family, but this isn't the family that's probably going there and doing this stuff. This isn't the family.
Yeah, and then, well, we do have other memorials in the city of Martindale. So if we're gonna talk about those, then we should talk about, you know, the other ones as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Chief. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to say this, have you thought about putting cameras?
At the parks? Yes, sir. I'm working on something like that. Yes, sir.
That's what we got them over there.
Yes, sir.
And then there was a citation, someone complained on social media, they got a $200 ticket for drinking in the river, or he had a can in the river or something, but, so you're enforcing it on the land and in the river?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
Tell you what, we're 2 steps ahead of San Marcos, Texas. San Marcos hadn't got their act
Yeah, I
together.
don't know.
Maybe that was the guy who said he didn't have it and he put it in the river.
I think that's exactly what happened, right? He was trying to hide it. and-
That was some time ago that happened. That one, I got one just recently down at Skull, a guy standing in the middle of the river drinking. Got one here.
You gotta talk about living your neighbor.
Again, yes, ma'am. So that is October, the first Tuesday in October. I still want to put together, I'm gonna put together something. Yes, ma'am, it's a Tuesday. It's called National Night Out. And I'd like to have something down here in the city. And I want to put together something with the other officers and all the businesses down here and just bring our neighbors in, bring the city down here and have something that we can meet everybody, pass out information about the police, about what we do and really just take care of everybody and let everybody start meeting everybody and be a community. And that's what National Night Out is all about.
Hey, I want to personally thank you and your team with this Park Mobile. It would have never happened without you guys. This thing would not have been a success.
Yeah, Adrian did all that, but.
Well, both of y'all together and, you know.
Well, and if anybody noticed in the last couple of days, they were filming a commercial
Yes.
downtown, so that was a lot of fun. So
Yes. So I learned a lot
if
about
you didn't know
commercial
what was
planning.
going on.
Yeah, so.
You got paid. You got paid for it.
Yes.
It's good.
It was hot. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
like when we get HG. Appreciate it, man.
Okay, we'll move on to River Advisory Board. I wasn't at this meeting, so I'm gonna ask Adrian to.
It doesn't seem that our chair for the River Advisory Board was able to attend tonight, so I'll elaborate a little bit on that subject. On the agenda.
Kept waiting for somebody to do something dumb so I could sneak out. Nobody does anything dumb.
You wanted some action.
Yeah, you at some point, I'll do something dumb.
Mamie, you wanted some action. That's what you wanted.
Sorry. Okay, back to
All right.
business.
Focus.
There's been a lot of conversation about wastewater improvements in the city, and I mean significant ones, not just repairs or additions. There's been a serious conversation about, for the past few years, on creating a new wastewater treatment plant. So the EPA disperses a bunch of money every year to every state, and the recipient of this award is through the Water Development Board, Texas Water Development Board. Aside from floodplain management, they also help with clean water and wastewater systems. Every year they have a program called the Clean Water State Revolving Fund Loan Program. What this does, it funds infrastructure projects for cities. It is a loan, but there is a forgiveness component up to 70%. Or a maximum of $10 million. Several cities like our own do apply for programs like this for comprehensive wastewater improvements. The River Advisory Board is heavily discussing this item and would recommend for City Council to pursue this program. Now, it is a loan at the end of the day. It's a 30-year loan. And what I found was, at most, your highest interest rate would be 3%. There's a city with a very similar circumstance as our own. The only difference is a population and capacity that their wastewater plant has. They have a evaporative pond system in South Texas. It's La Jolla in Cameron County. They have evaporative pond system. They're at 85% capacity, and they're between 3,000 to 4,000 population, and they neighbor a larger city similar to San Marcos. They were approved for 70% forgiveness for a $12 million loan. And the most you could ask for is a 30-year plan. That comes out to about $120,000 every year out of their general fund or expenses. I'm not too sure exactly when their first payment is required. I don't know if it's after the completion of the project. But I would like at the next city council meeting that we discuss this item for action. If council's interested in pursuing a project like this, from the surface level work I've done on this, it does approve for, or the program is actually looking for water conservation, reuse. They even verbatim state the term purple pipe as we've discussed in the past. It is looking for environmentally friendly projects for areas that have impending development. So given our region, it may be worth our time investigating this further. So please expect to discuss this.
What are the odds of getting the 70% forgiveness?
A majority, if not all the projects I saw had 70% forgiveness.
We looked at it. The one he's alluding to is like a carbon copy. It was a mud that actually got a 70%.
Another muds can get it.
Muds can get it. So it was a mud that even got it. So the demographics that the city is in is a big, the size of the city, the demographic, the same reason we got that other grant, we qualify.
We're determined under their definitions under a rural community, which is anything less than 10,000. That gives you bonus points. The kind of project you're pursuing gives you bonus points given environment sound projects. Or also your financial status of the city, your medium income is also determined. And as seen as in our other grants, we scored pretty well in that field. So there's a real shot for us to get a high forgiveness on this project. The only question at the end of the day is, can the city afford, for instance, $120,000 every year? And that's including interest.
Could we get grants, similar grants?
This is probably the most lucrative grant you could find for a.
And could we get multiple grants? So could we get another grant to add to that?
And on that project?
Huh?
Well, I hope that.
We wouldn't initiate the build-out until there was actual development coming. So if you had a piece of property over here that someone was going to be building 500 or 1,000 homes, that would trigger the building of the plant. And so you would then have those taps to use as the 30% difference. So we would write off the 70. So instead of like a traditional mud, which basically takes the cost of the mud plus their profit and just attaches it to everyone within that new subdivision, and the city collects no taxes on it. They're their own little entity. The developers would be making all the money. Now we're creating a different situation where it says, okay, the same development's coming in. These people are not getting taxed at a rate higher than their city taxes would be. They'd be back down to city tax level. They'd be in the city. And then we would also be able to have 100% control of the build out, the quality of the plant.
Quick other question. Do you know the cost of their plant they built, or have they built a plant yet?
What plant?
This town that you're.
Oh, La Jolla, yeah, they requested $12 million.
$12 million, okay.
So for a population of close to 4,000 people, if you want to assume we're at 1,200 today, maybe building this plant will double our population, you would probably expect a $12 million treatment plant. I think that's safe to assume.
Sure, sounds worth discussing.
So at the next meeting, you just expect to hear more about it. And it'll be about whether council wants city staff to pursue this project or not. I would like to also notify you guys that we'll be meeting with Langford and Berlin and Turk next Monday to discuss this project, if you will, or application. Langford, who we've done majority of our grant works with, have a lot of experience with this program as well. So we'll be learning a lot more about the intricacies of the loan program by the next council meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we mentioned it to them and they go, oh yeah, we can do that. So it was great.
Thank you.
That's that.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Oh, I was going to skip Dorothy, sorry. Let me back up to, in my mind here, to approve or deny the application for the River Advisory Board. Dorothy Jo has put in her application to fill a vacant position that I believe Matthew left to be on city councils. So
I would like to make a motion to approve the application for Dorothy Jo McGovern to the Martindale River Advisory Board.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Mike seconded. Is there any more discussion or is there any discussion?
I know in the past, in terms of our city council and the mayor, that we had something occur in the past where a husband and a wife were on the same, like, one was the mayor and the other was on the city council, right? So you can't have that kind of structure within the government if it's a formal position, say. I mean, this is.
This is non-voting.
Yeah, so this is.
Political body, then.
Yeah, this is just an advisory.
Right.
So this, none of those rulings would apply.
Right.
Okay.
Any more questions, Mr. Clinton?
No.
Okay, so I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the motion carries.
You got it.
Yay. Okay, so, the next item I put on the, agenda because I was asked to look into this. So don't get too distraught about seeing this, thing at Skull Crossing. When we were discussing this and we were discussing making one way up, one way down, you know, maybe putting in stop signs and whatever, I was asked to maybe think about doing an engineering study. I think we know what needs to be done. I'm not sure that we need an engineering study, but we need to know what the rest of the council thinks.
I would really, I mean, spend the money on engine, at this point, I don't know if we want to go with an engineering.
When
study.
I approached Turk, he said it would start at $3,000 to do the study.
We've already paid him and we got this sidewalk. We don't know if we're gonna get that grant. I think it's too early on, personally.
Don't forget, we're gonna be doing work probably with that first grant you guys mentioned today, right there at that corner in the near future. I mean, if we're gonna be engineering, we're already gonna be in that area at that time. I don't wanna go out and just spend $3,000 to $5,000 that we technically don't have in the budget allocated, otherwise we gotta take it from somewhere else. When we potentially are gonna be able to roll it into a grant that's already gonna be available in the near future. It's nothing we're gonna do right away anyway. I know you're right on that, but
I agree with that.
it's in play already, or maybe Lanzola will give us the surveys that they did when they, did that. I mean, they asked a whole lot of, I know you guys, about the wastewater plant. I mean, I'd really like them to reciprocate and ask for those plans that they did in order to get this, put in with the county. And that might be sufficient for some of the questions, that we're trying to address.
The reason why I asked for the engineer study is because, like, we do see the one ways and then the parking and the stop signs, and then yet we haven't even put a stop sign where there's one that should go at that other place. Cars are going through there. We were talking about having trailers parked on the side of the road where there was shade. And I mean, and I'm all good for that, but we also need to take into consideration that these are gonna be shared use paths with pedestrians, with people who are accessing the river, with children. Is there enough room? And I think like doing it on the of caution and like safety, I think $3,000 is well worth it to say that our city, we did everything that we needed to do to make sure that this plan was a safe plan and that we are putting thought into it, into the forefront and in the future. So that way we don't have to do it at a later time. If we were gonna do something, then we should do it the right way.
And what I'd like to see perhaps with this safety plan is for now exclude on that one-way road going up, the unloading and offloading portion of that schematic drawing, because that gets into the whole other talk of the usage of the Skull Bridge and the roads and the offloading and all that stuff. When you presented this, Mayor, you were more concerned about the safety of the roadway, the pedestrians and all that. And so I would partially agree with this and with what Sonia's saying, but I think at this point that we should exclude the unloading and offloading portion of that one-way road going up and the signage associated with that, because that's a whole other component of the whole can of
Well,
worms.
actually, the only question on the table is, should we hire an engineer to give us their thoughts on this whole intersection?
Well, then I'm just saying, if we decide to do that, that we should exclude the loading and unloading portion of this conceptual.
Councilmember Clinton, just respectfully, I would like to say that possibly, like, if we do an engineer study and they were able to provide us like a couple of different options about, maybe that would be an option that would include some safety features that we may, be able to change your mind or my mind about it. But I think having a engineer study with it, they would be able to present us with all the different options to see what's going to be able to provide the best safety for the use of that area. And I think 3,000 isn't that much for that big of a plan. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we pursue the engineering services for the conceptual roadway improvements for lots PID 125083 and 121888.
We have a motion and a second. A motion. Do we have a second?
I'd like to discuss it a little bit for a second longer here. Because.
Can I add something? How about?
Just a minute.
Second first.
So
He was waiting, he wanted to discuss it. So
Well,
I'll second it.
there you go. Now we can discuss.
okay, go ahead, Nick.
My biggest concern is that we're preparing for something that to create safety measures. I understand that we need to, if we're just doing one way on one side, stop signs, I don't necessarily think that we need to have an engineering study for that. But if we are gonna have proposed parking, and if we are gonna have people coning down to the Skull Bridge, which is still whole nother topic that we've already discussed, then we do need to create safety precautions, and we do need to make sure we're doing everything we can as a city to make sure it's a safe avenue. But
So the question on the motion is whether or not to hire an engineer.
yes, but there's still questions prior, like what's it, the engineer's gonna give us options for what?
That's my point. I
Yeah.
think we're way ahead,
I think it would be like.
way ahead of ourselves here.
What I would want to see is just like the parking, how it's going to be with the 22 proposed spaces that were there, the area, the path that's going to be down there to be able to access your kayaks down there to the water, the area where it was going to be, if there's going to be parking on the side for trailers, and we also need to just consider that. So we talked about a bunch of things at the
Right.
workshop.
Right.
And I think that all entails like a plan or a couple of different options.
Yeah.
So if I might add, from our experience working with engineers such as Freeland and Church, during the MIT grant process, he did come up with about 5 different maps. One could just be without any river access. One could be with river access. Just kind of give the city all possible opportunities that we could do with this riverfront property. That's probably what we would get in return if this motion does pass.
Right.
And it's not just the river, it's also Northwest River Road and the whole intersection.
So
It's all a
if
problem.
if we do get 5 options,
Well,
at least we have a
Okay.
baseline. At least we have a baseline to go off of when we do make a decision with the city in this area.
Well, maybe we could do small steps like put the stop signs. Let's go ahead and put stop signs.
We're gonna get this survey when they
Yeah.
when they do River Road here in the next, 6 months,
Yeah,
9 months.
Matthew, if I might add, when are you alluding that this is going to get surveyed during the MIT grant?
Yeah, when we do the drainage there, that's,
I was under the understanding that it was cut off way before Club Run.
well, the additional money, the secondary one are gonna be the subject though. Number one thing that Turk wants, and he's gonna promote, is doing the drainage there.
So you're discussing the mod,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because the mod hasn't been officially submitted yet.
The money's there, it's just a matter of picking the project.
Right.
And that is the number one project that is on the agenda that was supposed to be done for the Northwest River Road and got dropped because of funding.
Right.
So the logical extension is to complete the biggest part of that we neglected.
Right.
Which is that corner. Surveying another small section after that.
You have a good point.
Assuming,
Right there.
assuming we went through with the original grant, I'm pretty sure that it ended right at Quell Run.
It did.
Did not go extend
No.
past.
No, there was
No,
one that
No.
dealt with
It
that.
did the drainage. It did the drainage.
Yeah.
Yes, no, it was very specific, and that was, I've talked to Turk extensively about this, and that's the first thing he wants going on, is that, because that was the number one problem when they did the survey of the whole area, is that corner.
So,
Other than right here, where the cemetery is,
so,
and where their house is, that's the third.
so
portion.
what he's talking about is not the bridge and all of that stuff. He's talking about just Quail Run and,
Beyond this.
There's a drainage,
well, there's a,
ditch right here.
yeah. And it
well,
goes under the
it's more
road.
than a ditch. It's
The culvert, isn't it?
why it's so hard to keep the stop sign in that corner is because there's a culvert in there. And it goes under Northwest River Road, and then it's very steep down to the river, and it all needs to be fixed.
So was the consideration for shale crossing ever discussed during the MIT grant?
No, it's the
There's
intersection.
probably not a lot of particular.
Apply to that MIT and mod grant? And
Anything
if
to
it
do with
does,
drainage- Anything to do with drainage applies to that. That is
Right.
drainage. So surveying an area that has a drainage focus is definitely allowable in the scope of work.
Lanzola,
It would not come out of the budget.
they did a survey of that
It's a
whole
business
area
spot.
just after they bought that.
Yeah, you know that.
my second thought on that too is if we do pursue this with mod grant, assuming, let's say we do use the mod grant to extend this all the way to Quad Run, the drainage improvements, could the engineering service done on this, say tomorrow, be reimbursed by the mod grant? Do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
First of all, I think Lanzola already has the survey.
Yeah, but it's the survey, there's gonna be amendments to that survey anyway, which is gonna cost money, because we're not gonna have parking spots, we're not gonna know how wide, and like, the engineer's gonna be able to tell us exactly how wide that road needs to be for parking, and then also,
And that coincides with what I'm trying to tell you, because that's
Yeah, but
part of the
you gotta
whole
get,
thing about the drainage, that's
there's,
part of it.
there's a lot more particulars to that survey, though, and you're gonna ask for it.
And I
Okay,
thought
we
we
don't know.
wanted to, I thought we wanted to like start fixing this up and get it ready for the kayakers, and like there was an urgency to like get it ready and let's do this. So then with that, wouldn't we have to wait even longer before we do it?
I don't know where you're gonna get it on budget right now. You have nothing in the budget where you can spend another $3,000 to $5,000. You're gonna have to take something off. That's what I'm concerned. When we have the next budget meeting, you're gonna have to, when he says 3, that's fine. Okay,
So-
because we've all talked, conversation with Turk,
So what happened with
and I'll take
the
5 off the budget.
extra money that was in the budget that we could have applied it to different areas? I believe it was the 8,000.
We put it in IT. I mean, the
And the
police department
miscellaneous.
has got to have new computers.
So then in the miscellaneous line.
You're talking about the Park Mobile? These Park Mobile funds to.
No,
No, we're
No.
not using it for
No.
that.
So let's just get back to the question of, we can't solve all of, whether it's gonna be up and down. That's why I was a little nervous about this picture. But all we're trying to ask is, should we hire an engineer to assess the problem, or should we not?
Okay, now, the problem that I have with that though is when we had Turk draw the design for the sidewalk going to phase 1, he never actually informed us how much he
Yes.
was gonna charge us.
Exactly.
We,
But this time we asked,
Is it written? in stone?
It's not written, but I trust him.
I don't
He
trust
said-
it. I really don't, because
He said it would cost three, it would start at
Wait a year for him to give an estimate of how much he's gonna charge or gift me for taking all the land in the front of my house. And he's a year behind.
I know.
And you guys wanna waste his time over something like this? We've got all these other projects that he's already working on. He's gonna take, this is gonna take, he's just gonna stop what he's gonna do is work on this for a month for $3,000, and then we're gonna get behind even more on the River Road.
We
That's what's
spent
gonna happen.
$9,000, I think, on this sidewalk that we paid him. We got a bill for $6,000, and then we got another bill for $3,000. And
Did we? It was done?
Yeah.
God.
And so though that we weren't forewarned about, I think for him to charge us that $6,000 and then charge us $3,000 more, I'm not encouraged about those costs.
I think after discussion is why we're doing it. I think it's smart to see what we can get out of the grant. And I really, honestly, I don't think we need to do anything besides put a stop sign up there. It's already needed to be put
Yeah,
up.
we've got to get
We
that.
need to put that stop sign up, and I think we need to wait to see what happens with that land and see what we can get out of the grant.
So, I mean, from the outcome from it, none of that's gonna go on, it's only gonna be the stop sign.
Well, the question on the table is, should we hire an engineer or not? So I don't know. We can still put up a stop sign
Well,
and stuff.
see, just
But just to answer the question about whether or not to hire an engineer, we have a motion, we have a second. And so do you want to vote individually or as a group?
Individually fine.
Well, let me just say that with the engineer's signature on the document, if something happens there, his signature is on there stating that based on his study, that we are abiding as a city and that it's safe the way that we have it. If we do not have an engineer's signature on it, that is a city decision, and we will be writing on it.
I think we're just saying we want to wait.
So nothing is
Till we
gonna
see.
go on there until,
Nothing's gonna happen there until we,
Such a hot topic.
but I thought we wanted it to happen there. I thought we wanted the kayakers to go there.
No, we
I
never
thought we
decided.
wanted
We never we never made a consensus among us all about that.
I don't.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table and a second. All in favor of hiring an attorney, because that was the motion, was to, an engineer.
Like, what did I say?
An engineer. All in favor of hiring an engineer, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
So the motion dies.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I thought there was an urgency for this to happen and the kayakers and the workshop and everybody wanted access down there. And this is just about making sure everybody's safe.
No, I think for now, we should keep it as it is, work on the parks we have here, keep that fenced off, but keep it maintained, as our chief of police said, it's looking bad down there. There's sawhorses that are blocking, sitting there, there's garbage, there's trimming, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
no,
Now we're at the last,
But real quick, can I
Yeah, last agenda items.
make one
we
point?
have a resolution,
Now let's move on.
2308.
We've kept Mark and Laura here all night long.
Thank y'all for waiting.
Okay, so the last one, we have a resolution that's in the packet that we made they have been working on grants a lot, even before anybody knew that we were gonna have all this discussion about the Skull Crossing and parks and everything. So they just want to know, do we want, as a city council, as a city government, do we want them to go ahead and keep working on grants that they will still bring to us? We'll still have to approve or deny. Do we want them to continue with the work they're doing? And do y'all want to say anything?
We have several different potential projects that we've been talking about in the meetings every month that have to do with phase one, that hopefully one day will have a name. and Alan Bates Park. And one of the more involved grants would be to Texas Parks and Rec regarding probably phase 1, but not till next August. But it's one that's gonna take a lot of lead time to get prepared without making everyone pull their hair out. Then the other project came about as a result of the interviews that we've been doing with residents that were complaining that the playground area at Allen Bates Park, the equipment is too hot and their kids can't play on it. So it needs to have a shade, which is fine, like that's $7,000. That would be really simple to do. But the problem is, in order to do that, we have to bring the rest of the playground up to disability accessibility standards. So that means replacing a lot of that equipment in order to put the shade there. And people have mentioned that they need a little bit more lighting. So coming up with some additional lighting that will turn off at curfew, obviously, but that would allow them to get to and from the playground area. In order to do all of that, right now we're figuring it's going to be around $150,000. So I guess we just wanted to make sure before we spend the hours and hours it's going to take to put together all of those estimates and get the equipment and get everything done, that you're not going to like decide, oh, we never asked you to write a grant for the playground, so never mind. Or we're going to take out the playground at Allen Bates Park next month. We didn't think to tell you that. So we just wanted to make sure before we keep going, whether it's something you want. I mean, it's your city and you're the ones making the decisions. So, I don't know, but did you want to add anything to that?
I think that's what Laura was bringing as the question. And I think to just clarify a little bit that City of Community Unlimited that I work for has been facilitating this process and has our name and item with experiences. It's really kind of a volunteer activity here. And so it's Laura and Wendy and we'll support, but it's really some just good Martindale volunteers that they'll do lots of this. But to do that, they need the city to say, yes, go research grants, write grants, and the city's behind them if there's no use.
These meetings have been really good. I'd love to see more people come. I haven't been to all of them, but I've been to some of them, and there's been a lot of really good discussion about what could be done in this community. This resolution is kind of long, but if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and read it. Resolution affirming Martindale Community Unlimited Group's pursuit of grant funding for the City of Martindale. Whereas the City of Martindale is committed to the continuous enhancement of its resources, community resources, and the overall well-being of its residents. Whereas the Martindale Community Unlimited Group has demonstrated a strong dedication to improving the quality of life within the City of Martindale through its practice of proactive initiatives and community-based projects. I have bifocals, sorry. Whereas pursuing grant funding opportunities can significantly contribute to the advancement of community development, infrastructure improvement, and various programs that benefit the City of Martindale and its inhabitants. Whereas Community Unlimited possesses a proven track record of effectively managing and implementing grant-funded projects in alignment with the city's goals and objectives. Whereas grant funding opportunities are essential to supplement the city's financial resources, allowing for the execution of projects that might otherwise be constrained due to budget limitations. Whereas in order to ensure responsible fiscal management and alignment with the city's strategic priorities, it is imperative that grant opportunities pursued by the Martindale Community Unlimited Group are subject to approval by the governing body before their submission. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of Martindale. Section 1, the Martindale Community Unlimited Group is hereby affirmed as the designated entity to pursue grant funding opportunities on behalf of the City of Martindale. Section 2, the Martindale Community Unlimited Group shall collaborate closely with relevant city departments and officials to identify grant opportunities that align with the city's strategic objectives, community needs, and developmental priorities. Section 3, all grant funding opportunities identified and pursued by the Martindale Community Unlimited Group shall undergo a rigorous review process by the governing body of the City of Martindale before any submission is made. Section 4, the City Council shall ensure that all proposed grant applications are thoroughly evaluated to determine their potential impact, feasibility, alignment with city goals, and fiscal responsibility. Section 5, the Martindale Community Unlimited Group shall provide the City Council with comprehensive information regarding each grant opportunity, including its purpose, funding requirements, expected outcomes, and potential obligations to facilitate informed decision-making. Section 6, the City Council shall convene for deliberation on each proposed grant opportunity and subsequent approval or rejection of each grant application shall be determined through a majority vote. Section 7, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon adoption. And so.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the resolution 2023-08-17 to affirm the Martindale Community Unlimited Group to pursue grant funding opportunities on the behalf of the City of Martindale. And thank you.
A second.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Stan, you didn't want
opposed?
to discuss? No, this looks pretty good. I appreciate the work.
That was an easy one there.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And by the way,
Motion
we
carries.
can't just go, like, we could never just submit a grant. It has to come, like, the city is the applicant. So we could never just go off and like go freewheeling and start applying for grants that y'all don't know about, because you can't submit them that way.
I worked with both of you guys, no problem. I wish the rest of them, I wish all our meetings were like that. It was an easy one.
Okay, there's future items listed here. Does anybody have anything to add other than the 2 items that I have put here? Performance review for the judge.
Performance review, and I'd like to go ahead and set a date for the hotel tax workshop.
Okay, does anybody have any suggestions about,
We gotta get to the budget.
yeah,
When's the budget?
we
Well,
have to have that
The
done.
public hearing will be done the 7th and also the adoption. And for the 7th.
It's a late one, man.
Yeah, so, yeah, we just need a set
We've
date.
done worse.
In
I know,
October.
that was what, 10:30, 11.
Sometime in October.
What
So-
day, when is one, Sam?
What is this?
October? Are you busy any day in October?
Anytime's good.
October's down there, man. Hold on now.
Too bad.
Any weddings?
I'm gonna be around,
This could take a lot of time for a hotel.
Mid-October is good for me.
Mid-October? Mid-October?
Like Saturday,
So 11.
Or-
22.
I would suggest a Saturday versus evening, because I think it's gonna take a long time.
What does the 21st of October look like for you guys?
21st, that's on a Thursday?
That's the council meeting day.
The health and awareness.
That's September.
21st is a Saturday.
Right. That's,
Sorry, that was me.
Saturday, the second Saturday, third Saturday. Is anybody busy?
21st is good for me. 21st is good for me.
Sonia,
Sorry, what?
are you busy October 21st?
Let's go for it.
Now she is.
I think Thank you.
Stan,
Who knows?
October 21st.
All right.
If
There's
the,
other things going on in the city.
I just want to let y'all know the health and wellness fair is going from 10 to 12, so
Maybe afterwards.
On the 21st?
yes. Mhm.
And so we can't do it.
What about the 14th?
It's only, it ends at 12.
The concern with the 14th, is anybody have a conflict with the 14th?
Let's do it on the 14th.
All right, so we'll plan for the 14th, and if there's any changes, just let us know.
So like before that, I could send an email, but I would like to have all of our, like all the Airbnbs and our,
So,
you know, all that.
in some way, are you asking to have an ordinance developed for,
Wait for us to approach.
Airbnbs, really?
Yes, I would like to have just all the addresses listed, because I know that also we would be considering the ones in the ETJ, along with an action plan on how we can move forward with resolving this matter that's been looming for a while now. So just that we could do all the pre-work, and I'll definitely help, and I'll volunteer Matthew to go in and also assist with that.
You already got all the data.
If we
Been there, Matthew, been there, done that.
He's already got it done.
Or like whoever wants to do it, so we could come in like and have a little work session. Don't even look at your watch, man, before that, and we'll get all the information down.
October 14th at 12 PM, and then to have ready those city
Everything,
limits.
yes.
Boy, I think it'd be better to do it the 21st or the following weekend.
Well, if we need to change it, we'll have 2 more meetings to reschedule.
Because it's going to be a lot
Might
of
be
work.
tight, might be tight. With other objectives of the city.
Yeah, and then if we need to split it up, like if you say you get the listings and
Where you wanna go?
do a list, I can help out in any way.
All right, so 14.
Okay.
Put me in.
Anything else to add to the?
Are we still
Are you?
gonna just submit comments to Jared about the request for proposal for the maintenance for the parks? Or are we meeting about that again? Or are we just submitting things to him and not worry about having another workshop or meeting about that?
Those comments, and then once those comments have been assessed, it'll be at the next meeting. I'll verify with them.
Okay, thank you. That's all I
Okay,
got. Thank
do I
you.
have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn at 9:21
Second
p.m.
that.
August 17th.
And who seconded it?
I did. Not me.
All in favor?
I.
All in favor?
Sure. Sure.
You're right.